Chapter 804. No matter what, Tion Fa should not be a place to start a war. The humans of the continent can roam freely. They can move around freely. But there is only one Tion Fa forest. The humans have millions of families, but we, the Shin beasts of Tion Fa, only have this one home. After we came to an agreement, the 9 of us worked tirelessly to guard the seal. While it was for the sake of the continent's peace, it was also for the sake of Tion Fa becoming a paradise for the Shin beasts. We thought that the sacrifice of the 9 of us could at least ensure the peace of Tion Fa for 1,000 years. But we never thought that right in front of our eyes, you would overturn everything. What kind of logic is this? Could it be that the solemn agreement back then was just a piece of paper? Could it be that we, the Shin beasts, are so easy to bully? The face of the rough man who was the leader was pale, and his expression was a little dispirited. But when he spoke, he was particularly aggressive. His eyes were exuding an extremely furious expression as he stared at the 20 people in front of him. It was clear that if there was a disagreement, he would immediately start a fight, and there would be no room for negotiation. Clearly, the other party had disregarded the safety of Tion Fa and forcefully started a war, and Tion Fa had completely enraged him. Lu Shenghuang has misunderstood. The 9 serenities and 14 masters is our common enemy. As long as this person is not eliminated, the crisis of the continent will not be resolved. As for the matter that Lu Shenghuang asked, there are many unforeseen circumstances in this matter, and I will explain it later. After all, everyone is injured now, and we need to rush back to treat our injuries. For such a small matter, let's wait until the next time we meet, and we can explain it clearly. That brother Chow had an awkward expression on his face as he forced a smile. Small matter? Chow Guofeng, you are really shameless. Could it be that the matter of Tion Fa is a small matter in your eyes? And you are still trying to delay and mislead us. What I want is not your so-called explanation. What I want is a real statement. The burly man's expression was stern as he said in a low voice, "If you cannot give me an explanation today, then the 20 of you can stay in Tion Fa. Even if you are an expert of the Holy Emperor, do you think you can distort the truth in Tion Fa? This Tion Fa Holy Emperor's temper is really bad." The invisible Jun Mo Xie sighed in admiration in his heart. Although these fellows were simple-minded, straightforward, and easily tricked, but when it came to fighting, they didn't care at all, like a real man with a bird in his mouth. Brother Chow Guofeng laughed and said, "Brother Lu, if you had said this 300 years ago, I might have considered it. But after 375 years of exhaustion, if you want to keep the 20 of us here, even if we're injured now, it is still impossible, right? On the other hand, if we risk aggravating our injuries, do you think there is a higher chance of us not being able to leave this place alive?" Beside him, another person chuckled and said, "Brother Lu, as the saying goes, time changes and things change. The days of Tion Fa, 1 saint and 8 venerables, are gone forever. We all know each other, so why can't we sit down and have a good talk? Do they really have to resort to violence? Fighting a meaningless battle with the current strength of Tion Fa, can you really win?" Lu Shenghuang's expression changed, and he said coldly, "Well said. You mean to say that, when we were strong, you begged us to do things, but now that we are weak, we should be at your mercy?" At your mercy? Although this was what everyone meant, some things were better said than done. But when he said it out loud, the faces of the Holy Emperor and Saint Kings couldn't help but turn red. After all, the 9 Saint Kings of Tion Fa had done their best to watch over the 9 nether 14th young master for so many years. Furthermore, they were clearly doing them a favor. Not only did they fail to fulfill the promise they'd made, they even wanted to burn the bridge after crossing the river just because they no longer had any more value to them. No matter how one looked at it, this matter was inexcusable. No matter how hypocritical a saint-level expert was, they still had to leave behind the last bit of their dignity. The bigger the fist, the bigger the reason. It is a fact that the strength of Tion Fa is not as strong as before. Lu Shenghuang has always been upright. You would never deny this point, right? The white-robed man was silent for a moment, and suddenly said, "The rules of the pugilistic world have been the same for 10,000 years. As for friendship, in the blood of iron pugilistic world, Lu Shenghuang, don't you think that it is just a joke? The one with the surname Bai, do you represent the misty mansion by saying this?" Lu Shenghuang took a step forward and stared at the white-robed man's face. Suddenly, his hair stood on end. "I'm not talented, but I am one of the top few people in the Misty Mansion now." The white-robed man hesitated for a moment, but he still raised his head and said. His words were equivalent to admitting that the words he'd said earlier represented the stance of the entire misty, illusory manor. "Good, good, good." Lu Shenghuang nodded his head heavily and said "good" 3 times. Then he looked at the others and said, "Everyone from the 3 holy lands, do you all have the same opinion?" Everyone looked at each other for a long time, but no one said anything. The person from the misty mansion had already made his decision. If they said no, it would be the same as offending the misty mansion. If they said yes, it would be the same as offending the Tian Fa forest. For a moment, they were in a dilemma. All of them cursed Brother Bai in their hearts for forcing them to the edge of a cliff, unable to advance or retreat. But these people thought about how the younger generation had targeted Tian Fa and even ganged up on the current Tian Fa Beast King, Venerable Maid-of-Death. This enmity and hatred had long been irreconcilable. Now that these seniors of Tian Fa had reappeared, it was impossible to hide it. Instead, it was better to be a bit more straightforward and make things clear. And now that the strength of the Tian Fa forest had been greatly weakened, these 9 senior Beast Kings were almost at the end of their rope, and the younger generation Beast Kings were weak. It seemed like there was no need to worry too much. Thinking of this, they decided to remain silent, which could be considered as tacit agreement. Seeing everyone's awkward and ashamed faces, but not saying anything, Lu Shenghuang could not help but laugh coldly. "Good, very good, very good. For the sake of an illusory promise, the 9 of us have worked hard for almost 400 years. Now, even our primordial spirits have been heavily injured. Under the impact of the seal, we have indeed become an arrow at the end of its flight. This is an indisputable fact. Since the 3 holy lands and the misty mansion think that the current Tian Fa is nothing, then this seat has no face to ask for an explanation. If that's the case, our small Tian Fa forest will not be able to accept such great deities like you. Everyone, please leave in peace. This Lu will not send you off." After saying this, his eyes suddenly widened and he said, "From now on, all ties are severed. Our Tian Fa will not participate in any matters of the Xianxian continent. Even the war for seizing the heavens will have nothing to do with us. 10,000 years of friendship and kindness will be written off, and we will treat it as if it never happened. From now on, we will be strangers. If any human dares to step into Tian Fa's ferocious land, their life and death will be decided by fate." These words of his were said with great determination, even filled with grief and indignation. A pain that came from deep within his bones could be clearly seen. Furthermore, the meaning behind his words was also very clear. From now on, everyone was no longer friends, nor were they allies, but enemies. In just a few words, the 5 peak powers of the Xianxian continent had completely fallen apart. But fundamentally speaking, this matter could not be blamed on Lu Shenghuang's impulsiveness. Lu Shenghuang and his 8 brothers were all extremely indignant. That year, they made a solemn promise to ensure the safety of the Tian Fa forest, and even gave extremely generous conditions. That was why the 9 Beast Kings did not hesitate to sacrifice themselves to enter the Misty Mansion's mist formation, guarding the seal with all their might, and resisting the attacks of the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. That year, before entering the Forbidden Grounds, Lu Shenghuang, who had the highest cultivation among the 9 Beast Kings, was already at the level of the Holy Emperor. The other 8 Beast Kings were also at the level of Saint King. Among them, 3 had even reached the level of a second-level Saint King. But in these 400 years, the 9 serenities and 14 masters have been tormenting themselves day and night, and the 9 of them had also been tormenting themselves for hundreds of years. Originally, this kind of high-intensity battle was the easiest way to increase one's strength. But in such a crucial position like the seal, it could not increase one's strength. Not only could it not increase one's strength, it also caused great damage to the body, damage that was almost impossible to recover from. The strength of the 9 Beast Kings was constantly being absorbed by the power of the seal, maintaining the normal operation of the seal. So they practiced day and night, but it was not enough to supply the devouring effect of the seal. If it was only the strength being absorbed, it would be fine. But with the addition of the 9 serenities and 14 masters attacking day and night, the seal's demand also increased day by day. In recent years, it had reached a bleak point where their souls were damaged. After 400 years, not only did the Xian beasts not make any progress in their cultivation, compared to before, they had regressed a lot. Even their bodies were left with injuries that could never be healed. This was an internal consumption, which was equivalent to the loss of their lifespan and the damage to their souls. This was something that no elixir in the Xian continent could make up for. It had been 375 years. The saints of the 3 holy lands had now become holy kings. Many of the Saint King level experts from back then had already successfully advanced to become Saint Emperors. But these 9 brothers had wasted 375 years and ended up like this. Just this alone was already a huge loss. Who would have thought that there would be even more shameless people? Once the 9 serenities and 14 masters broke free and the seal lost its effect, these people actually turned their backs on them, burning the bridge after crossing the river. Not only did they not keep their promise, but they also wanted to start a war in Tian Fa. The most despicable lies, the most shameless answers, the most chilling words, all the solemn promises of the 3 holy lands and the Misty Mansion were just empty words. A huge joke that was not funny at all. Chapter 805. It was important to know that this area was the purest essence of the Tian Fa forest. Not only were there countless spirit herbs, there were also rare treasures everywhere. The heaven-earth spiritual chi was also many times denser than anywhere else, and no one had ever destroyed it before. It was the most natural and most complete treasure trove. If not for that, something as bizarre as the 9 Nether Passageway would not have appeared here coincidentally. The most unbearable thing was that they didn't even get an explanation. The only reason was that Tian Fa was too weak now. In other words, they no longer had the qualifications to be on equal footing with the other 4 factions. Such a thing was simply intolerable. So the Beast Kings all went berserk. Chao Guofeng sighed and hesitated. In the end, he finally said, "Brother Liu, since that's the case, you're on your own? We'll meet again in the pugilistic world." Liu Shenghuang said expressionlessly, "Go ahead." At this point, the 9 Beast Kings had completely given up on the 3 holy lands and the Misty Mansion. As the leader of the 4 factions, Chao Guofeng actually turned a blind eye to the unfair treatment of Tian Fa this time. It was obvious that the 4 factions did not come up with this idea on the spur of the moment. They had planned and discussed this beforehand. It was time for Tian Fa to be eradicated. It had to be eradicated. If Brother Liu is fortunate enough to meet Senior Mei, please convey my deepest apologies. Guofeng, I've really let him down. Chao Guofeng's face was solemn, and his words were almost like a sigh. But Liu Shenghuang was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Lingling said, "I don't dare. I'm sure that if Emperor Mei knew how powerful Holy Emperor Chao is now, he would also be extremely gratified." The Senior Mei they were talking about was the Holy Emperor of Tian Fa from 700 years ago. 1,000 years ago, during the war for seizing the heavens, Chao Guofeng had been watching the battle as a junior disciple. However, he had almost been killed by a strange race's enduring earth. It was Saint Emperor Mei who had acted to save him. Because of this, Chao Guofeng's actions today made Liu Shenghuang even angrier. Chao Guofeng let out a long sigh and waved his hand, saying, "Everyone, let's go." The surrounding 10 million Xian beasts could only watch helplessly as they retreated, their eyes filled with rage. But without an order, none of them dared to act rashly. Just as the last person was about to leave the Misty Mansion, he suddenly turned around and asked calmly, "Where is Jun Moxie?" The one who spoke was the Holy Emperor of Hermitage, Zhan Mubai. "Jun Moxie? Who is it?" Lu Shenghuang was startled. "Jun Moxie is your Tian Fa's son-in-law. I came here this time because I have a very important message for him." Zhan Mubai smiled lang and said, "Brother Lu, Tian Fa's strength is not as strong as it was in the past, and their actions are not simple. To think that they actually found a human son-in-law. Speaking of which, I have to congratulate them." "Human son-in-law?" Lu Shenghuang frowned and swept his gaze across the crowd of Xian beasts. "Who married a human? Little Crane? Little Bear? Who married a human?" His gaze swept across and instantly noticed that one person was missing. "Where's Little May?" Long Crane hastily walked over and said with a smile, "You this, this. Jun Moxie is Big Sister's husband, and Big Sister was injured and hasn't recovered yet. So she didn't come over. Little May's man?" Lu Shenghuang's face twitched strangely before he suddenly revealed a smile. "This little lass is not bad. To actually be able to kidnap a human to Tian Fa. This ability is not small. Where is that brat? Call him out for me to see." When these words came out, not only did Long Crane and the rest jump in shock, even that Zhan Mubai was shocked. Marriage between Xian beasts and humans was a taboo for both sides. In this period of time, the Saint Kings did not come out, and Mei Shuyan was the sole leader, so no one dared to object. Now, that Lu Shenghuang and the rest of the Xian beasts had come out and heard about this, they did not seem to be angry at all. This was really strange. At this time, the 19 people who were walking in front also stopped. "Are you looking for me? What's the matter?" The group of Xian beasts slowly parted, and a person slowly walked out. His clothes were whiter than snow, and his face was like jade. His figure was slender, and he looked at Zhan Mubai with a smile that was not a smile. "I wonder if this senior Holy Emperor has specially mentioned this junior? Is there anything you want to teach me?" Right now, behind him was the Tiger King, Earthcracker. On his left was the Lion King, Carefree Rock, and on his right was the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. They were not far away, and he was in the middle of a large group of shape-shifted Xian beasts. He was not very tall, and his figure was not burly either. It could be said that he was not the least bit eye-catching. But for some reason, the moment he came out, everyone's gazes were involuntarily focused on him. A maverick. He was definitely not an ordinary person. All the experts' pupils shrank the moment they saw Jun Moxie. These Saint Kings and Holy Emperor's eyesight was brilliant. With one look, they could tell that this youth in front of them was definitely not ordinary. Moreover, this youth's cultivation had actually reached the venerable level and above. But what shocked them the most was still his age. This youth's real age was definitely not more than 20 years old, a genius who had reached the venerable level before the age of 20. Since the beginning of time in the Xian continent, there had been countless Xian Qi geniuses. But throughout the ages, there had never been a genius who had reached the venerable level before the age of 20. This youth's future potential was really limitless. Looking at the current momentum, he would probably become a Saint King within 30 years. And within 100 years, he would definitely become a Holy Emperor expert. This was a terrifying speed that was enough to make experts at the level of the Holy Emperor cramp their stomachs. The moment Jun Moxie appeared, the eyes of the 9 Beast Kings shot out a strange light at the same time, and they all focused on him. And the 19 Saint Kings and Holy Emperor experts who had already walked far away actually turned around and walked back at the same time. Each of them looked at Jun Moxie with extremely complicated gazes. No wonder this kid could become a thorn in the side of the 3 Holy Lands. From the looks of it now, how was he just a thorn in the side of the 3 Holy Lands? This was practically a disaster. The hatred between them had already reached a point where it could no longer be resolved. Once this kid was fully fledged, perhaps he would be an even more terrifying existence than the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. After all, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters only wanted to conquer and would never kill the innocent. But this June Moxie was obviously not the type of person that the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters were. Not only would this kid kill indiscriminately, but he would also go on a killing spree. This was an ultimate killing god that was still growing up. Whether it was for themselves or for the Holy Lands, they had to destroy him. If this kind of talent belonged to the Holy Lands or other unrelated forces, not only would the Saint Kings not be jealous, they would not have any misgivings. Instead, they would have a strong love for talent. Even if they had to pay a huge price, they had to think of a way to recruit this genius. However, it was unfortunate that such a talent turned out to be his enemy, and an enemy that could not live under the same sky. Therefore, this kid had to die. The experts from the 4 forces revealed a strong sense of fear in their eyes at the same time. They stared at June Moxie, all of them pondering in their hearts. These people were not ordinary saint venerables from the 3 Holy Lands. With just a glance, they realized how terrifying June Moxie was. But when the 9 great senior Beast Kings of the Tian Fa Forest saw June Moxie, their feelings were completely different from the people from the Holy Lands. Everyone's eyes lit up. This kid was really not bad. It seemed like before Holy Emperor May mysteriously disappeared, he had said something like this: Tian Fa's 10,000 years, success or failure depends on a single person. It must be because of this person. All along, Saint Emperor May's prophecy had left all the higher-ups of Tian Fa Forest scratching their heads in confusion. Tian Fa Forest was full of Shin beasts. How could there be such a strange saying? Tian Fa's 10,000 years, success or failure depends on a single person. No matter what, the success or failure of filling up the forest could not be decided by a human. Moreover, it was just a single person. But now that they saw June Moxie, the 9 great senior Beast Kings simultaneously understood the meaning of this sentence. It must be this young man in front of them. The 9 great senior Beast Kings also saw June Moxie's true value at the same time. This fellow was simply a living, growing ultimate killing machine. What was more worth celebrating was that he was the son-in-law of the Tian Fa Forest, and he was Shui Yan's husband. It could be said that he was one of their own. When the 9 great senior Beast Kings heard that Mei Shuyan had arranged a marriage with a human, although they did not show it on the surface, they were all furious in their hearts. How could the 10,000-year rule of the Tian Fa Forest be broken so easily? It was only because of the presence of a strong enemy that they did not want to embarrass their own families that they did not make a move. Therefore, before June Mo Xie had come out, they had even decided that if they didn't like him, they would simply drive him out, or just kill him and be done with it. No matter what, the reputation of the Tian Fa Forest could not be destroyed by a human. But right now, June Moxie walked out so calmly, and the moment they saw him, the 9 great senior Beast Kings changed their minds at the same time. This fellow was definitely an opportunity for the Tian Fa Forest, and the biggest savior in this crisis. No matter what, they had to keep him in Tian Fa and protect his life. Especially now, the 9 of them had gone through more than 300 years of exhaustion and were almost at the end of their rope. Tian Fa lacked successors, and it was a time of crisis. Fortunately, such a talent had appeared. Once such a person was fully fledged, he would be able to ensure that Tian Fa's reputation would not fall for 1,000 years. Therefore, when all the experts from the human side turned around, the 9 great senior Beast Kings also took a few steps forward without batting an eyelid. Subtly, they used various methods to cut off the subtle distance between them and June Moxie. This was equivalent to using the strength of the 9 of them to protect June Moxie. This step of theirs made the form of the scene even more delicate. Everyone harbored ulterior motives, but no one dared to act recklessly. Only June Moxie and Zhan Mubai were left facing each other. Chapter 806. But at the same time, the 9 Beast Kings were also grumbling inwardly. This brat should not have come out at this time. Right now, we have lost a lot of strength. Although the other side is injured, but their high-end combat strength is more than twice as strong as ours. And Jun Moxie's current strength is so weak. If a fight breaks out, he might not even be able to escape. As for the other Xian beasts, their strength is too weak. Although they are numerous, it is difficult for them to form a fighting force. You are Jun Moxie? Zhang Mubai's eyes became deep. It was impossible to tell what he was feeling. I am. Senior, please speak your mind. Jun Moxie said lightly. At the same time, an indescribable feeling of unease welled up in his heart. He had already vaguely guessed what this holy emperor was about to tell him. It was most likely related to the various families of Dongfang, Duanmu, and Sikong. So Jun Moxie hurriedly stood out. If those families suffered irreparable harm because of him, Jun Moxie would not be able to accept it. And this news was something he urgently needed to know. Moreover, coming out at this time was equivalent to revealing his identity to those senior beast kings of Tian Fa. It must be known that if Jun Moxie did not appear in such a lively place, it would give off a feeling that he was afraid of death. The one-track mind of Xian beasts was unreasonable. If they were to leave such an impression, it would be detrimental to the Jun family's foothold in the Tian Fa forest. So although Jun Moxie did not want to come out, he had no choice but to do so. My surname is Zhan, and I come from Hermitage. Zhang Mubai's sharp eyes looked at Jun Moxie's face and said solemnly, Before I came, Lord Amo Wudao specially instructed me to pass on a message to you. He looked into Jun Moxie's eyes and said word by word, Dongfang, Duanmu, Sikong, Blizzard Silver City. These 4 families are finished. Jun Moxie's heart shook fiercely, and his face suddenly turned pale. He took a deep breath and said indifferently, Junior doesn't understand. What does Senior mean by finished? Specifically, was he dead? Or is the family finished? When he said this, even though he tried his best to control himself, his voice still carried a hint of chill, an awe-inspiring, killing intent. This chilling, killing intent caused Zhang Mubai, who was standing opposite, to suddenly feel a chill run down his spine. This made him feel an indescribable sense of danger. When he heard Jun Moxie's question, he couldn't help but smile. He half closed his eyes and said, What's the difference between a person and a family? Isn't it the same thing? Senior, you must have lived in seclusion for too long. You can't even understand such simple words? Jun Moxie's eyes widened, and he didn't avoid his gaze. He used a solemn tone and said in a low voice, If a person is finished, then it means that they are completely dead. However, if a family is finished, then it means that the foundation is declining, but not many people will die. Zhang Mubai's pupils shrank, and his face turned cold. He laughed strangely and said, This old man isn't clear about this, and I'm not interested in knowing. If you're interested, why don't you go out and take a look for yourself? Won't everything be clear then? At this moment, he was really afraid, because he and Jun Moxie's 4 eyes met, and the other party didn't seem to be at a disadvantage under his powerful spiritual attack. This discovery made the murderous intent in his heart soar to the heavens. This kid is dangerous. I'd rather lose my reputation today, and I'll eliminate him. Thank you for your reminder, Senior. This junior had really forgotten that I can still go out, Jun Moxie said with some mockery. A trace of anger appeared in Zhang Mubai's calm eyes, but he retracted it. He looked at Jun Moxie and said lightly, Other than sect leader Mo's words, I have something else to tell you. This junior will listen to Senior's teachings, Jun Moxie said coldly. Chun Chong, who was killed by your master, was my disciple. He was this seat's only disciple, and also my last disciple. He has been the only person to inherit my legacy for several hundred years. Once this old man returns to heaven, this old man's teachings in the mortal world will be inherited by him. But, under the hands of your master, not even his bones were left. A trace of pain flashed in Zhang Mubai's eyes. Master and disciple, father and son, for several hundred years, they were buried in one day. So, I want to see your master. His expression became desolate as he looked up at the sky. His eyes were filled with sorrow and desolation as he said desolately, But that master of yours is a complete coward. He actually dares to hide, not daring to come out and meet people. So, if I want to see him, I can only ask you to help me pass on a message." Jun Mo Xie snickered in his heart. "That master of mine doesn't exist. You've told me, and that master also knows." He couldn't help but smile playfully. "Has Senior looked for my master? When has my master ever feared anyone in the world? It's just that he has something important to do recently, and rarely shows himself. I don't know what it is, but you can tell me. I will definitely bring it to him." "Good." Jean Mubai chuckled and praised. As expected, heroes come from the young. Heaven and Earth spirit lock. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. Jean Mubai's white finger suddenly pointed at Jun Moxie, and a strong force instantly imprisoned Jun Moxie. The area that this force covered was not very big, and it was almost as big as Jun Moxie's body. It could even be said that it was only the same size as Jun Moxie's body. But because of this, it showed that this force was extremely precise to the extreme. This was a kind of power that belonged to the laws of heaven and earth, and it had already exceeded the boundaries of the heaven and earth cage. This unexpected turn of events was something that no one had expected. Jun Moxie did not expect this, and neither did the Beast Kings. Even the other experts from the three Holy Lands and the misty illusory manor did not expect this, because this was simply unbelievable. Who would have thought that the two sides would suddenly turn hostile and attack each other when they were still having a good discussion just a moment ago? Furthermore, it was a Saint Emperor who had suddenly launched a sneak attack on a junior, a mere martial venerable, a child who was not even 20 years old. This was no longer just despicable and shameless. It was directly shameless. This was the face of a holy emperor. And the lifetime reputation of a top expert in the Xian continent. "You must remember to tell your master. He killed my only disciple, and I will also kill his only disciple today. Let's see if he can still continue to be a cowardly tortoise." Jean Mubai let out a long roar, and the right hand that was pointing at Jun Moxie originally only had his index finger and forefinger. But at this moment, the other four fingers were fully extended, and his palm was raised. A sharp gust of wind condensed from his palm, like a raging dragon emerging from the sea, carrying a strong aura of death and destruction, slapped towards Jun Moxie's chest. If Jun Moxie was still in the state of the yin-yang escape, not to mention one Jean Mubai, even if there were 100 or 10,000 of him, they would not be able to harm Jun Dashao. But now, Jun Moxie was at his most helpless state. He was outside, and the opponent had directly used the heaven and earth spiritual lock to seal the space. Just like Mei Shuiyan's heaven and earth cage. Although Jun Moxie had an unfathomable ability, but if he was forcefully restrained by the opponent without using the yin-yang escape, he would still be abused by Mei Shuiyan. What Jean Mubai had used now was a higher level than the heaven and earth cage, the heaven and earth spiritual lock. The 9 Beast Kings roared angrily at the same time, but it was too late. The moment Jean Mubai's fierce palm wind appeared, an extremely sharp whistling sound immediately resounded in the Tian Fa forest. Wherever the palm wind passed, even the air started to emit a faint green smoke. This palm strike was extremely powerful, and Jun Moxie could not avoid it no matter what, because he did not even have the ability to move a finger at this moment. Jun Moxie laughed bitterly in his heart. Who would have thought that Jun Moxie, would actually die in such a dubious way? But this could not be helped. Who would have thought that the dignified holy emperor would actually be so shameless? He had always been on guard and had never relaxed. But when he heard that Jean Mubai wanted him to pass on a message, he subconsciously relaxed, because since he needed Jun Moxie to pass on a message, he would not do anything to him. How could a dead person pass on a message? But he never expected that after Jean Mubai said this, he would immediately make a move. His despicable intentions were simply infuriating. At this moment, a mournful scream suddenly rang out. Jun Moxie suddenly felt a soft body pouncing on him. Or perhaps it should be said that it pounced on the heaven and earth spiritual lock that was imprisoning him and hugged him tightly outside the heaven and earth spiritual lock. A touch of tender green color and a tempting fragrance had just entered Jun Moxie's nostrils and eyes when he let out a soundless roar like a madman and poured the extremely pure purple spiritual energy that he had recently cultivated into this body. Because he had already recognized this person, the Snake King, Qian Sun. At this moment, she was the closest to Jun Moxie. Ever since Jun Moxie appeared, she had been standing beside Jun Moxie silently. At this moment, she was also the one who had silently pounced on Jun Moxie's body, blocking this fatal blow for him. Ever since Jun Moxie had returned from Blizzard City and announced his marriage with Mei Shuiyin to the Xian beasts of Tian Fa, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen had basically not spoken a single word to Jun Moxie since then. Her entire person seemed to be completely silent. Even when she was with the Beast Kings, she did not speak a single word. It was completely different from her personality in the past. But it was she who, at this moment, at this most dangerous moment of life and death, silently stepped forward. The moment she pounced on Jun Moxie's body, she even tried her best to straighten her back and widen the distance between her chest and Jun Moxie's chest, afraid that the aftermath of that terrifying palm strike would affect him. In the next moment, Jun Moxie only felt that the frail body of the Qian Sun Serpent Queen in front of him shook violently, and a mouthful of fresh blood sprayed onto his face. Then a powerful force did not stop there. It passed through her soft back, pierced through her chest, and came out, ruthlessly slamming into his chest. With a loud crack, 4 or 5 of Jun Moxie's ribs were broken, and his internal organs suffered an unprecedented violent shock. He could not help but feel a sweet taste in his mouth, and a mouthful of fresh blood sprayed out. A head of beautiful hair fell weakly onto his face, and then slowly slid down. The light body of the Qian Sun Serpent Queen also slowly fell down. Her large eyes did not show any pain, nor did they show the sadness of her impending death. She just silently and calmly looked at Jun Moxie's face. From the beginning to the end, she did not say a single word. She only looked at him and then slowly closed her eyes. Chapter 807. At this moment, Jun Moxie suddenly felt as if his heart had been completely torn apart. His hands and feet trembled as if they were spasming. In that instant, his soul felt as if it had been pierced through his heart and lungs, and he became confused. He didn't even know why Qian Sun had done this, and why she had done this. But he could see from the eyes of this green-robed Snake King that he was fine, and she was relieved. That was why she had closed her eyes, and her breath of life was rapidly fading away, but she still appeared to be at peace. Jun Moxie, who had successfully broken free from the primordial violet chi, did not move at all. At this moment, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Why is this happening? This is love. Perhaps only love can make a young girl disregard the price and risk her life to protect a person. But why is this happening? Why did she fall in love with me? When did this happen? Why don't I know anything about it? And why am I so slow? Jun Moxie hugged the soft and delicate body in his arms. His heart was at a loss, and he almost subconsciously channeled his heaven and earth spiritual chi into her. In fact, he had completely forgotten that his body had also suffered serious injuries. Mei Shuiyin, who was concentrating on her cultivation in the Hongjun Pagoda, was surprised to discover that the 5th level of the Hongjun Pagoda had suddenly opened with a loud bang, and the entire pagoda began to rotate slowly. Countless mysterious purple spiritual chi flowed out like a long dragon and was continuously channeled out. It seemed that Mo Xia was engaged in a fierce battle with someone again, and it was an extremely strong enemy. Otherwise, the spiritual chi in the pagoda would not be channeled on such a large scale. I don't know. Who is his opponent this time? And will he be in danger? Mei Shuiyin secretly thought. Thinking of this, she suddenly realized a fact, and that was, ever since Jun Moxie had made his debut, no matter which battle it was, he had basically been fighting against those of a higher level. On the contrary, those who were at the same level as Jun Moxie had basically never fought before. What a freak. Mei Shuiyan smacked her lips and felt relieved. She thought to herself that it would not be too late to ask him when he came in. Mei Shuiyan, who had always been wise and far-sighted, had been focusing on her cultivation recently, and her sense of danger had decreased. She had actually neglected the fact that Jun Moxie was currently in the ferocious grounds of Tian Fa. A huge battle was happening right in front of his own home, and he even needed the help of the Hongjun Pagoda. The battle situation was definitely dangerous. But right now, a heaven-shaking change had already occurred outside. Jun Moxie had used all the primordial qi that had gushed out from the Hongjun Pagoda to prolong Qian Sun's life force and heal her injuries. He had not even left a shred of primordial qi for himself, who was also heavily injured. After withstanding this blow, the primordial violet qi in his body suddenly exploded, and the Heaven-Earth Spirit lock immediately collapsed. And that shameless Zhang Mubai did not continue to chase after him. It was not because he had the heart to let him go, but because that old bastard could not even take care of himself right now. The 9 great Tian Fa Saint Kings had joined hands to launch a deadly attack on him. But right now, Jun Moxie did not have the time to consider what Zhang Mubai or Zhang Mahe. The only thought in his mind was the woman in his arms. Why? He asked himself over and over again, why love? Jun Moxie did not know the answer to this question, and neither did Mei Shuiyan. In fact, even the Qian Sun Serpent Queen herself might not be able to explain it clearly. Love, there was no why. There was no reason, no reason. Love was love. Some people could fall deeply in love with each other the first time they met in their lives. Similarly, there was no reason. Perhaps the Snake King had never left the Tian Fa forest before and had never seen any young men or women around his age. And the other shape-shifting beast kings in the Tian Fa forest were all burly and boorish. But the appearance of Jun Moxie was an anomaly. After following Mei Shuiyan for tens of thousands of miles, teasing and teasing him along the way, and even turning enemies into friends, Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan had become friends, got to know each other, fell in love, and finally decided to become lovers. But other than the two of them, there was still a bystander, the Qian Sun Serpent Queen. She watched as Jun Moxie and Mei Shuiyan got to know each other, fell in love with each other, and finally stayed together. She couldn't help but feel moved. After all, how many women in this world wouldn't be moved by a man like Jun Moxie? But this feeling, whether it was just being moved, she had never revealed it. Jun Moxie was an outstanding man, a man who moved her heart, but at the same time, he was also her elder sister's man. She was in no position to intervene, and she couldn't intervene. If you truly love someone, you would want that person to be happy. So, Qian Sun chose to remain silent. But feelings were like fine wine. The longer it was kept, the stronger it would be. Perhaps nothing at all. Just like what we have said, love is love. Even if this love, she had never said it out loud. From the beginning to the end, there were no other lovers who were intimately entangled with each other. There were no flowers under the moonlight. In fact, there was no time for the two of them to be alone, not even for a moment, but she gave up her life for this love, and she didn't regret it. If you love someone, you have to give up for that person, giving up without asking for anything in return. When the person she loved was in danger, she didn't even think about it and used her own life to protect him. She didn't even have the time to think about whether she could block it or not. What would happen to her after this strike? But this pounce was already instinctive. She only wanted the person she loved to be safe. That's all. What she feared the most in life was love dead, and the hardest to enjoy a beauty's heart. So, unknowingly, she had already owed so much. Jun Moxie's heart was in turmoil, and he was stunned. The 9 senior Beast Kings attacked at the same time. Bear Mountain, Long Crane, and the rest of the Xian Beasts had already charged over in rage, no longer caring about how insignificant their strength was in front of a saint-level expert. With continuous roars, the high-level Xian Beasts of Tian Fa all charged over without a care, and after unleashing that strike, Zhang Mubai was also attacked by the 9 Xian Beasts at the same time. Moreover, because the miraculous primordial violet chi had suddenly erupted and forcefully broken through the heaven and earth spirit lock that he had released, he naturally had to suffer a considerable backlash. All these factors combined together caused him to be seriously injured almost immediately. Although he was a holy emperor-level expert, and his strength was extraordinary, and the 9 senior Xian beasts were also at the end of their flight, but even if Zhang Mubai was at his peak, he would never dare to fight head-on with the 9 Xian beasts like this. Furthermore, he had suffered internal injuries from the battle with the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Just now, he had locked on a Jun Moxie, but his sneak attack had failed, and he even suffered an unexpected backlash. So, after unleashing that strike, he also suffered a tragedy. Fortunately, the other 19 experts immediately rushed back and helped him. Only then did they barely manage to save his life. But the Xian beasts of Tian Fa had clearly gone completely crazy. This strike had directly incited the strongest enmity of the entire Tian Fa forest. Countless Xian beasts flew in the sky and ran on the ground, all of them charging over with bloodshot eyes, unafraid of death. In the blink of an eye, the 20 experts had become a small island in the sea of Xian beasts. Blood flowed continuously from Zhang Mubai's nose and mouth. His injuries were extremely serious, but he still glared at the ground, unwilling to give up. Jun Moxie and the green-robed Snake King were hugging each other, prostrating on the ground, as though they were no longer breathing. He was extremely confident in this strike of his. This palm strike, which was executed with the Heaven and Earth Spirit Lock, was enough to kill 2 4th-grade venerables on the spot. Although he had unexpectedly suffered a backlash from a mystical power, he was still 100% confident. In this instant, he was certain without a doubt that the 2 people over there were definitely not going to survive. That brat is already dead. Let's all retreat. Why are we arguing with these beasts? Zhang Mubai shouted anxiously to Chao Guofeng. Chao Guofeng shouted loudly, "Good. Everyone, follow me." Suddenly, a light flashed in his hand, and an ancient-looking long sword appeared in his hand. He swung in the wind, and instantly, sword light shot out like a torrential rain. A series of miserable screams rang out. He took the lead and charged forward. Another 2 holy emperors who were slightly injured followed closely behind him. Like a hurricane, they opened up a path of blood and killed their way out. Long Crane flew into a rage and shouted, "Tian Fa Xian beasts, listen up. Everyone move out at all costs. We must kill these 20 bastards." In his rage, he had actually forgotten that he was no longer the leader. He immediately gave the order. Just at this time, a weak but solemn voice rang out in Lu Shenghuang's ears. "Don't fight recklessly, let them go. Don't fight recklessly. The gains do not make up for the losses." Lu Shenghuang was stunned. Turning around, he saw Jun Moxie lying on the ground, looking at him anxiously. He couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. So this brat is not dead. As long as he's not dead, everything is fine. At this time, the 20 experts of the Allied forces had already leaped up the trees and were advancing at high speed. The entire Tian Fa forest was in an uproar. Almost every tree had dozens of poisonous snakes, and some even had hundreds or thousands of them. There were all kinds of flying Xian beasts in the sky, stretching for tens of li, and this range was still growing. They were all attacking with no regard for their own lives. They were using all methods that could be used, and all methods that could not be used to attack. However, those 20 peak experts of the Holy Emperor's level were still arranged in a huge triangular formation. Their swords flashed as they charged out without stopping. They did not care about how many enemies they injured. They only wanted to escape. Peak experts who only wanted to escape unscathed were difficult to suppress with their advantage in numbers. Chapter 808. After a few consecutive days of writing and saving manuscripts, it had finally come to an end. These few days he had basically been pulling all-nighters every day. Every day, the number of words written was more than 10,000. To be honest, if it were to explode, He could have done 4 chapters every day for the past few days. But after the explosion, he stopped updating during the spring festival. After a one-time explosion, there would be silence. Compared to updates that flow slowly, what I prefer is to continue to flow slowly, because that way, I will feel that even on the eve of the Lunar New Year, I will still be accompanying you guys. You guys are also accompanying me. This feeling of celebrating the Lunar New Year with a big family is very warm. Today, I will be going home. Starting from tomorrow, which is the 28th of the 12th lunar month, until the second day of the Lunar New Year. For the next 5 days, I've already set up automatic updates. The first chapter will be at 19 p.m. sharp, and the second chapter will be at 19:10 p.m. Just nice to be consistent. The fourth chapter of the Lunar New Year's Eve will be released at midnight. I will accompany everyone to celebrate the Lunar New Year, bid farewell to the old year, and welcome the new year. Please believe that I will still be with you guys. My brothers, my sisters. Here, Feng Ling sincerely wishes everyone Happy New Year. Everything goes according to plan. Happiness for the whole family. In the new year, I wish everyone a bright future, a happy love, a successful career, and a successful education. Sincerely. Chapter 809. Everyone could see the current situation. These people were undoubtedly experts, but all of them were injured. The current situation was the same as when these people were dealing with the 9 serenities and 14 masters. Therefore, the strategy that was effective against the 9 serenities and 14 masters was also effective against them. Depletion. In terms of one-on-one combat, there was almost no one in the Tian Fa forest who could be their match. However, this was the Tian Fa forest, the base camp of the Xian beasts. As long as they fought without caring about the sacrifices, they could slowly use the tactic of using a sea of beasts. Even if they were martial saints, they would be exhausted sooner or later. At the very least, more than half of them would be left alive. However, the price of obtaining the final victory with this method was the lives of hundreds of thousands or even millions of Xian beasts. Perhaps, many of these Xian beast kings would also be dragged to the grave by them. Such a battle could not be withstood by Tian Fa. Of course, the Misty Mansion and the Holy Land could not bear it either. Therefore, when Jun Moxie came back to his senses, he immediately noticed the situation. He immediately felt a pang of heartache and shouted for them to stop. Right now, in his heart, these Xian beasts were almost like his own family. How could he watch them make such a huge sacrifice? Moreover, the people from the Misty Mansion and the Holy Land had him, Mei Shuyan, and the experts to deal with, and even the enemy of the enemy, the 9 serenities and 14 masters. If too many Xian beasts died now, it would not be worth it. Moreover, in his heart, he had a faint thought. I have to collect my own blood debt bit by bit. However, just as he sent a message to Lu Shanghuang to make way, the situation between the two sides had become chaotic. Under the ruthless command of the Eagle King, the incoming group of eagles adopted the tragic method of first injuring themselves before injuring the enemy. Thousands of eagles rushed over with shrill screeches. When they came into contact with the 20 experts, they suddenly self-destructed at the same time. The power of thousands of level 7 Xian eagles self-destructing was not ordinary. It was earth-shattering. A large area was cleared in the middle of the Tian Fa forest. The 20 experts from the allied forces of the Four Lands, despite their profound cultivation and strong defense, were still sent flying into the sky by the aftermath of the huge explosion. And in the sky, the Eagle King flew up rapidly, shouting sternly, incessantly urging batches of black eagles to launch a new round of self-detonation attacks. It had to be said that the Eagle King was an extremely ruthless character. From the start of the battle, he realized that with his current strength, if he did not adopt a decisive killing strategy, he was afraid that the casualties would exceed his expectations. Therefore, he decisively ordered the black eagles of his clan to self-destruct. Although this seemed cruel, it was the best way to conserve their combat strength. Furthermore, it could use its strongest power to inflict maximum damage to the enemy. If they only relied on the ferocious attacks of the Xian beasts, it would be completely meaningless. Even if the Xian beasts were numerous, fearless, and continued to fight, it would not have much meaning. Instead, it would be better to use the most decisive method. Since they were going to die either way, why not first cripple themselves, then cripple the enemy? Seeing the strategy laid out by the Eagle King, Long Crane's eyes brightened. With a loud cry, countless high-level Xian cranes followed suit and swooped down, gathering in the center, and also began to self-destruct. Paying the price with their lives, they fought against the strongest experts of the Four Lands. The sounds of explosions rang out incessantly, as if the mountains were collapsing. The depths of the Tian Fa forest had turned into a sea of blood and fire. The 20 experts from the Four Lands, who were calm and at ease a moment ago, were now somewhat battered and overwhelmed. In fact, these experts from the Four Lands were all in the midst of the countless Xian beast self-destruction, and all of them had sustained different degrees of injuries. With their cultivation, if it was only the self-destruction of 1 or 2 Xian beasts, they wouldn't care at all and wouldn't be able to cause any harm. But when faced with thousands of Xian beast self-destruction, even the Holy Emperor would not be able to withstand it for a long time. At this moment, there was a sudden flash of light in the distance, and several people shouted together, "Stop! We are all on the same side. Why do you have to do this? Let's talk things over." Unexpectedly, dozens of figures rushed over from all directions. It was the ambush that the four forces had arranged beforehand. Who is on the same side as you? You are worse than beasts. Let's talk things over. Long Crane's eyes had already turned into 2 blood-red lanterns. Just as he was about to give the order to kill all of them, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. Lu Shenghuang appeared in front of him and shouted, "Make a path. Let them go." His order was too noisy just now, and although Long Crane heard it, he pretended not to hear it. Now that it was right in front of him, Third Master Crane did not dare to pretend not to hear it anymore, but he still widened his eyes and said, "Why? They killed brother-in-law. We must avenge brother-in-law." "Idiot! Your brother-in-law is not dead." Lu Shenghuang slapped him on the head. "You're good. You don't even listen to my orders." Long Crane instantly felt relieved and touched his head as he asked, "Really? What about that Xiansun girl?" Lu Shenghuang's face darkened. From his point of view, it was already a miracle that Jun Moxie was able to survive, and he was afraid that Xiansun's Serpent Queen. No matter what, there was no hope. The light in Long Crane's eyes dimmed, and 2 large teardrops slowly rolled down from his eyes. He then said in a sorrowful voice, "Our generation of beast kings only had this one sister. We only had this one sister, and she's gone, but we..." At this time, the people from the 4 forces had already gathered together. The 20 people from before were all in a sorry state. Their clothes were ragged, and they were covered in blood. Their faces were pale, and 2 of them were missing an arm. Their bodies were covered in wounds, and one could even see the white bones in many places. In this short period of time, the Xian beasts of Tian Fa had already gathered in the millions. The sky was dark and boundless, filled with flying Xian beasts. Their bloodthirsty and ferocious eyes stared at this group of people, causing them to involuntarily feel an indescribable chill in their hearts. The ground was filled with a veritable sea of Xian beasts, densely packed, and it was hard to tell how many there were. The craziest ones were the snake race. Some of the huge, venomous snakes directly climbed up to the top of the trees, propping themselves up to show off their strength. Seeing such a large number of Xian beasts, although the people from the 4 great powers were all peak experts, they still sucked in a breath of cold air in their hearts. For the first time, they felt uncertain about whether they would be able to leave the Tian Fa forest alive. But this time, several sharp whistling sounds rang out, and the dense horde of Xian beasts actually opened up a path. A tall and sturdy figure stood on the back of a large white crane, slowly rising into the air. It was Lu Shenghuang. He looked at these people with Ling Ling and said lightly, "All of you go. From now on, Tian Fa will separate from the Xian continent and form its own force. When we meet again in the future, we will be enemies and not friends. I hope that everyone will not come here to seek trouble." Chao Guofeng and the rest heaved a long sigh of relief. They hurriedly cupped their fists and said a few polite words before leaving in a hurry. Seeing these people leave, all the Xian beasts' eyes were burning with anger. In fact, they were even a little dissatisfied with this leader that they hadn't seen for hundreds of years. "They killed brother-in-law and the Snake King. Why do we let them go? We can definitely *CK these bastards to death. Why do we let them go?" Bear Mountain directly stood out, his eyes red. He reverted to his original form, his huge body standing up straight, all his fur standing up like a porcupine. His thick fingers actually pointed at Lu Shenghuang's nose and said angrily, "When has our Tian Fa ever been so weak? Why? Why?" Facing the dissatisfaction in the eyes of the Xian Beast Kings, Lu Shenghuang laughed bitterly and explained helplessly, "Let's not talk about how many lives our Tian Fa will have to sacrifice to *CK those bastards to death. The most important thing is that your brother-in-law is not dead, and letting them go was also his idea." "Brother-in-law is not dead? Really?" Bear Mountain and the rest instantly cried out in joy and rushed over. Lu Shenghuang laughed bitterly. "Looks like this human youth is really popular. Even this bear is so obedient to him. But it seems like this bear was still questioning me just now, and even forced me to explain." Lu Shenghuang suddenly remembered and prepared to settle the score, but Bear Mountain's figure was already nowhere to be seen. How is this fellow going to visit brother-in-law? When he heard that Junmo Xie was fine, he had already felt relieved and disappeared without a trace like a wisp of smoke. Old Bear wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. "That is the true supreme king of Tian Fa. Holy Emperor. Oh my God, what was wrong with me just now? How could I be so daring to point at his nose and question him? Oh my God, It wasn't easy for this brother to marry a wife. I can't let my wife become a widow because of this, The group of Beast Kings gathered around, only to see that Jun Moxie was still hugging Qian Sun and lying on the ground. Even his posture hadn't changed at all. His hand was still stuck on Qian Sun's back and didn't move away. When the group of Beast Kings gathered around, he opened his eyes, indicating that he was fine. "Little fellow, how are you now? Are your injuries serious?" Lu Shenghuang saw that he wasn't getting up, so he went up to him and asked anxiously. Jun Moxie took a light breath and felt a piercing pain from where his sternum was broken. He laughed bitterly and said, "I'm fine, it's just a few broken ribs. I'll be fine after a few days of recuperation. But Snake King, she is really a little serious. What? This little Snake King lass, she's also not dead?" This time, Lu Shenghuang and the rest were really shocked. That was an all-out attack from the Holy Emperor Although Zhang Mubai wasn't able to use his full strength due to his injuries, he still had at least half of his usual strength. And Snake King had only reached the peak of the superior supreme realm at most. He hadn't even reached the first level of a venerable. The difference between the two of them was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was already not bad that palm didn't turn Snake King into a pile of minced meat on the spot. But from what Jun Moxie said, that last Qian Sun was actually not dead yet. This was something that the 9 Saint Kings couldn't understand, even if they racked their brains. Chapter 8:10. Lu Shenghuang reached out his hand doubtfully and placed it on the Snake King's wrist. He circulated his energy to check and could not help but widen his eyes in disbelief. "What's going on? How come this girl's internal organs are not broken? It's just that the concussion is very severe. How is this possible? The bones in her back are obviously broken, but her internal injuries are so light. This is unbelievable." The other 8 holy kings were also shocked. They squatted down and clicked their tongues in wonder. The scene before their eyes was something they could not understand no matter how hard they tried. Looking at Zhang Mubai's posture at that time, it did not look like he was going to show mercy. Not only did he not show mercy, but he had also used all his strength. But this little Snake King, who bore the brunt of the Holy Emperor's attack, was actually not dead. The bones in her back were obviously broken, so it could be inferred that her internal injuries were extremely serious. But at this moment, although Qian Sun's internal organs were shaken, there were no signs of specific injuries. This meant that Qian Sun might be paralyzed for the rest of her life, but there was no danger of her life. This was too unbelievable and could not be explained at all. June Moxie smiled bitterly. What's so great about not dying? At that time, it was our combined energy that broke through and withstood the attack. My energy is the primordial violet chi. After that, I even used a huge amount of primordial violet chi to help Qian Sun revive her soul and extend her life. It would be strange if she really died. But the broken bones in her back are troublesome. It must be said that the situation at that time was extremely dangerous. If the Snake King had not pounced on him, Jun Dashao would have died for sure. But this pounce on the Snake King gave him a relative buffer. In addition, Jun Moxie exerted all his energy at the risk of his life, pouring a huge amount of the newly cultivated primordial violet chi into the Snake King's meridians in an instant. Although Jun Moxie was new and his cultivation should not be very high, it also depended on who he was compared to. Compared to a martial saint, Jun Dashao, who was at the venerable level, was naturally not strong enough. But the Snake King was only at the superior supreme level, and he had just broken through not long ago, so his foundation was not stable. The primordial violet chi that Jun Dashao poured into him was far beyond what Qian Sun could bear, be in quality or quantity. Such a huge amount of spiritual energy was not something the Snake King could bear. If not for that attack from behind, just Jun Moxie's primal chaos purple chi would have been enough to cause the Serpent King to explode. But at that moment, the attack from the back came. These two kinds of power were equivalent to a fierce contest inside the Serpent King's body. But the Holy Emperor's hundreds of years of hard work was still very powerful. Now Jun Moxie's primordial violet chi was just in its embryonic form. Its quality might be better, but the difference in quantity was too great. Naturally, it was not a match for the Snake King. But the primordial violet chi had its own mysteries, so it was not a one-sided defeat. And because of this, the Snake King's life was finally saved. But it was only his life that was saved. All the bones on the Serpent King's back had been smashed into powder by this palm strike, and his internal organs were seriously injured. Such injuries, if not counting the horrifying side effects of the Saint King elixir, were even more serious than Mei Shuiyan's. Such serious injuries, this lass's injuries, are so serious. Why hasn't she reverted to her original form? Lu Shenghuang checked and found another strange thing, and could not help but click his tongue in wonder. Jun Moxie smiled bitterly. He had used a huge amount of primordial violet chi to protect her body. If she wanted to revert to her original form, she would have to be able to do so first. In Lu Shenghuang's eyes, it was an unbelievable miracle that Qian Sun was still alive after suffering such a heavy blow. One must know that that was at least 80% of the Holy Emperor's strength. But in reality, the Snake King's injuries were still unusually serious, and he could not move at all. Based on the current situation, Jun Moxie had used all his strength, and even borrowed the huge amount of primordial violet chi in the Hongjun Pagoda, but it was only enough to hang on to her last thread of life. At this point, it was really hard to say what the final result would be. Jun Dashao really did not have much confidence that he could save Qian Sun's life. Lu Shenghuang was still clicking his tongue in wonder, but unexpectedly, an even more shocking and miraculous scene played out. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Jun Moxie waved his hand slightly, and Snake King, who was in his arms, suddenly and inexplicably disappeared. Lu Shenghuang blinked his eyes, and his gaze locked onto the young man. He suddenly felt that this young man seemed to contain endless mysteries, but this ability to make a living person disappear into thin air with a flick of a finger was something that he could not see through. However, he did not say anything, and only looked meaningfully at Jun Moxie. To Lu Shenghuang, The more mysterious and profound Jun Moxie was, the more powerful his achievements would be in the future, and the safer his homeland, the Tian Fa forest, would be. So this Tian Fa holy emperor, who had lived for almost 1,000 years, not only did not ask, he even hoped that Jun Moxie had as many secrets as possible, and the stronger he was, the better. He was Tian Fa's son-in-law, Shui Yan's man. This reason was enough. Also, the few of them did not have much time left. To the current Tian Fa forest, a person like Jun Moxie was what they needed the most right now. For Jun Moxie to use such a shocking and miraculous method in front of everyone, Jun Daxiao had no choice but to do so. Right now, the Snake King's aura was getting weaker and weaker. If he did not let her enter the Hongjun Pagoda, she would probably die immediately. But the Snake King could not move at all. In this situation, Daxiao naturally made the decision to send that last Qian Sun into the Hongjun Pagoda to recuperate. Back then, Mei Shuiyin had been seriously injured and her cultivation had fallen to the bottom. She had even reverted to her original form. However, she had been able to maintain her consciousness and control herself. But now, the Snake King had fallen into a state of chaos. She did not have any consciousness to speak of. Her current state was even worse than the so-called vegetative state in her previous life. At the very least, people in a vegetative state still had a deep consciousness and a subconscious that was similar to a dream. However, Green Hunter had completely lost this bit of consciousness. Her current condition was extremely terrible, and whether or not she could recover completely depended on external help. She was no longer able to cooperate with them. So, Jun Moxie had sent her into the Hongjun Pagoda at the first moment and used the purest heaven-earth spiritual qi to slowly nourish her. Only when she regained her consciousness would they talk about the subsequent matters of her recovery. Furthermore, Jun Daxiao's own injuries had already reached a terrible state that could not be left untreated. But the way Jun Moxie treated his own injuries had caused Lu Shenghuang, the experienced and knowledgeable holy emperor of Tian Fa, to be shocked once again. There was even a hint of disbelief in his eyes. But the things that he had seen today were simply too surprising, and he was already used to it. Jun Daxiao sat up slowly. The many broken bones in his chest continued to emit a series of cracking sounds. The pain was unimaginable. Even the Tian Fa beasts, who were known for their strong bodies and thick skin, could not help but feel a chill down their spines for Jun Moxie when they saw this. Unexpectedly, Jun Daxiao did not seem to care about it at all. He took a deep breath, and his body swelled up like a balloon. And those broken ribs mysteriously returned to their original positions under the support of his mystical spiritual qi. But because of the sudden expansion of his body, there was a corresponding distance between the broken ribs. Junimo, Xie, clenched his teeth and retracted the spiritual qi he had used to swell his body. His body instantly shrunk back to its original size, and the broken bones also joined back together in the process of shrinking. This instant of contact produced an intense pain. It almost caused Jun Daxiao to faint from the pain, but he forcefully endured the pain. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans instantly flowed down his forehead like a waterfall. Following that, Jun Daxiao carefully circulated the primal chaos purple qi in his body to bind the broken ribs tightly. Then he stretched his waist and felt carefully to confirm that he had not endured the pain for nothing. As long as he did not exercise too intensely, these broken ribs would be fine. Even so, Jun Moxie's handsome face was strangely pale and beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. But from start to finish, his expression did not change at all. It was still cold and calm, and there was not even the slightest change in his gaze. The only thing was that the deep, murderous aura in his eyes became even more restless because of the intense pain. Whether it was that sudden attack from Zhang Mubai or that strange message he brought, it all caused the deepest and most intense killing intent to rise in Jun Moxie's heart. This was another debt of blood. It was already a debt of blood. Zhang Mubai had sent a message because Mo Wudao hoped that he would walk out of Tian Fa so that he could take the opportunity to deal with him. There should be no mistake about this. But that sudden sneak attack was definitely a decision that Jean Mubai had made at the last minute. What good idea! Although it would sacrifice the reputation of a holy emperor, it would be able to eliminate the greatest hidden danger of the three holy lands. No matter how one looked at it, this business was still profitable. In fact, Jean Mubai's reputation might not be affected much. After all, he was taking revenge for his successor, and from a righteous point of view, it was still for the sake of the three holy lands. He had no choice but to sacrifice his own reputation to get rid of this big scourge. This was even a good reputation, but a pity. Jun Moxie did not die. This caused all of Jean Mubai's sacrifices to be meaningless, and it even increased his infamy. The most serious thing was that Jean Mubai's sneak attack had completely aroused Jun Moxie's desire for revenge. He didn't even know that his sneak attack had released a death god who had been painstakingly suppressing his own temper. Chapter 8:11. When Mei Shuyan was seriously injured, Jun Moxie had thought of dealing with the three holy lands immediately. Although his strength would not be able to cause too much damage to the three holy lands, with his soundless yin-yang escape and his heaven-defying five elements power, he would definitely be able to completely destroy the three holy land sects if they were unprepared. Let this bunch of hypocrites who keep saying that they are for the world become stray dogs. But when he thought about how Mei Shuyan's lifelong wish was to ensure the victory of the war for seizing the heavens, Jun Moxie could not bear to let her hope be destroyed, and he did not want to become a sinner who destroyed the peace of the continent. So Jun Moxie chose to bear with it and retreat. He moved the entire Jun family to Tian Fa, firstly to preserve their strength, and secondly to avoid conflicts. Everything would be decided after the war for seizing the heavens. Retreating into the Tian Fa forest this time was a beautiful shift in strategy from anyone's point of view. But only Jun Moxie knew that his retreat this time was very sullen. Jun Mo Xie had already made the Tian Fa forest his final retreat. But his plan was to wait until there was nothing left to contend for in the continent. Then he would retire calmly, and not like now, escaping into the Tian Fa forest to avoid revenge. These were two completely different concepts. But this time, Jean Mubai's sudden attack had thoroughly enraged Jun Moxie. He had almost lost his life, and Qian Sun's life was hanging by a thread. He did not even know if she could recover in this lifetime. Such a heavy consequence was not something he could bear. First, it was Mei Shuyan, then it was Qian Sun. Then, if he retreated, who would be next? I've already retreated, but you guys are still chasing me relentlessly. Then why should I retreat? When dealing with a vicious dog, if you don't beat it to death, it will not give up and bite you. Only by beating it to death, or beating it to the point that it will run away the moment it sees you, would you be able to solve this once and for all. So Jun Moxie was prepared to counterattack, and it was a completely bloody counterattack. However, he did not reveal any of these thoughts. He only suppressed and swallowed all the hatred in his heart in an indifferent yet heavy manner. He let it ferment in his heart, waiting for the moment when it could explode. Before he could explode, Jun Moxie would not let others see that he had such a strong desire for revenge. Right now, Jun Moxie's mentality was like a wolf king hunting on the prairie, quietly waiting for the most suitable opportunity to arrive. Before the opportunity presented itself, it would never reveal its fangs. Come, let's go to my place. We'll discuss what to do next. Jun Mo Xie jumped up and gently patted the dust off his body. He smiled and acted as if nothing had happened. However, all the beast kings who heard his words felt a chill from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood was about to materialize from the young man's hand. This was the innate intuition of Xian beasts, the intuition of sensing danger. It was an intuition that humans did not possess. How did this happen? This was simply going too far. We should not have let those bastards escape unscathed, even if we had a fight to the death just now. They say that we are beasts, but they are worse than beasts. In Jun Moxie's hall, Lu Xinghuang heard from Long Crane about Tian Fa's sufferings all these years. He could not help but roar in anger. After nearly 400 years of hard work, all he got in return was a blatant betrayal. This was something that no one could accept. If Saint Emperor Lu's cultivation was still present, he would most likely have killed his way to the headquarters of the three Holy Lands to demand justice. Long Crane and the rest lowered their heads, not daring to make a sound. What about Shui Yan? Where is she now? To what extent has her injuries recovered? Lu Shenghuang asked sternly. Shui Yan's current cultivation is not bad. She has already recovered to the strength of a level 7 or 8 Xian beast. But if she wants to recover her full strength, she will still need some time. Jun Moxie said lightly. Shui Yan, she was beaten back to her original state? How did this happen? Lu Shenghuang looked at him in shock, not daring to believe what he had just heard. Suddenly, he slammed his palm on the stone table. With a loud crash, the sturdy stone table turned into dust. The three Holy Lands went back on their words and still bullied us intolerably. I swear I will not let this matter rest. The other 8 Saint Kings were also filled with righteous indignation. Others might not know, but how could they not know? Mei Shuyan was the only surviving direct descendant of Tian Fa's old ancestor, Holy Emperor Mei. She was also the only royal bloodline in the entire Tian Fa forest. This was also the greatest secret of the Tian Fa forest. No matter how high the cultivation of the beasts of Tian Fa was, even if they had reached the level of the Holy Emperor, they could only call themselves Beast Kings. Only the descendants of the Holy Emperor Mei had the right to be called Beast Kings. If something really happened to Mei Shuyan, the 9 of them could not imagine what would happen next. If that old ancestor came out of Tian Fa's secret cave in a fit of rage, then it would not be as simple as a catastrophe. After a long time, they finally calmed down and asked Jun Moxie, Jun Brat, you are Shui Yan's husband. Do you have any other plans? Jun Moxie already knew that this Lu Shenghuang's real name was Lu Zhuifeng. Other than him, there were also the 8 Beast Kings from the previous generation. The current Crane Saint King He Heomong, Lion Saint King Shi Patian, Monkey Saint King Ho Zhuangji, Snake Saint King Shi Wu, Leopard Saint King Bao Budong, Tiger Saint King Hu Zhen, Bear Saint King Xiong Pai Li, and Wolf Saint King Lang Xiaofeng. These 9 people were all renowned great figures in the Xian realm all those years ago. We could talk about my plans later. The important thing now is, do you 9 seniors have any plans? Jun Moxie pondered for a moment and did not answer. Instead, he asked a question. Jun Mo, he didn't say it clearly, but everyone understood that he was asking about the position of these 9 seniors in the future. The sky could not have 2 suns, and a country could not have 2 monarchs. It was the same even among the Xian beasts. The return of these 9 people would undoubtedly be a great help to Tian Fa, but correspondingly, there would also be a division of power in the upper echelons. That was a huge variable with 2 Beast Kings had appeared in many clans. In the past few hundred years, Tian Fa had already formed an exceptionally strict management system. The new Beast Kings all had indisputable supreme authority in their respective clans. But now that the senior Beast Kings had reappeared after going into seclusion, this authority was greatly impacted. The position of this layer had to be resolved as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would definitely lead to a deep internal crisis. In order to defend the external, one had to first settle the internal. Jun Moxie was about to begin his revenge. Of course, he did not wish to discover the internal strife in his base. So the first thing he had to do was to resolve this potential crisis. Asking about our plans? The few of us old fellows have all suffered great injuries, and our lifespans are not long. Even if we want to lead the beast hordes, we are already powerless. Dear Chasing Wind laughed bitterly and said, The 9 of us have already discussed this. This time, we will all be worshipped by our respective clans and live out the rest of our lives. But if there is a battle, it will be us 9 old farts who will fight first. Our battle strength may be far from the past, but it is still possible to drag an enemy of the same level with us. From now on, the Beast Kings of the various clans are not to enter the battlefield. This is our only request." The other 8 Saint Kings nodded their heads. When these words came out, June Moxie, Long Crane, and the rest of the Beast Kings were all greatly reassured. With Deer Chasing Wind as the representative, these words were equivalent to carrying out the most formal transfer of power between the Beast Kings. Mosia and the rest of the Beast Kings are deeply moved by the righteousness of the various seniors. But there is another matter that I do not understand, and I hope that seniors can clear it up. June Moxie furrowed his brows and said, "Senior Deer, when the 9 of you entered the fog of the Misty Mansion back then, the weakest among you was at the Saint King level. But in these 300 years, the Xian Beast's inheritances were only at the supreme level. The only exception was Shui Yin, who was only at the venerable level. What kind of logic is this? Could it be that Long Crane, Bear Mountain, and the rest did not work hard enough?" Deer Chasing Wind's face once again revealed a look of extreme anger. "Isn't this a good thing that those bastards set up? Tian Fa has a tradition since ancient times. Only when every generation of Beast Kings inherits their inheritance will they pass down the true secret techniques of their race to the new Beast King. It has always been passed down by word of mouth. But at that time, we did not even have the time to pass down the inheritance and were tricked into the fog of the Misty Mansion. Bear Mountain, Long Crane, and the rest of the younger generation naturally did not inherit the battle techniques and mantras that a Beast King should have. How could they have become strong? Xiao Mei was able to cultivate to the venerable level by herself because her innate talent was outstanding. She was a heaven-sent genius. Unfortunately, she was beaten back to her original form. Why were we so stupid back then? How could we believe the flowery words of that group of bastards? So that's how it is." June Moxie, Long Crane, and the rest all came to a sudden realization. No wonder the strength of this generation of Tian Fa's Beast Kings was so weak. So this was the root cause. Luckily, you appeared at the crucial moment. Otherwise, if they really took advantage of our absence to sweep through Tian Fa, then the Tian Fa forest would really be finished. When we descend to the Yellow Springs, how would we have the face to meet the previous generations of Tian Fa? Deer Chasing Wind said with some lingering fear. He looked at June Moxie with an even more satisfied gaze. "Your vitality is greatly injured, and your lifespan is not long. How about letting me take a look?" June Moxie asked tentatively. "There's no harm in taking a look, but this is something that can't be helped. Although we have long seen through life and death, but if we don't have to die, who would really want to die? Furthermore, Tian Fa is in troubled times right now. If they lose us old fellows who are the last line of defense, with just these few juniors, it will be difficult." Deer Chasing Wind looked at Long Crane and the rest with guilt and worry in his eyes. He stretched out his hand without hope and said sadly, "For the past 375 years, we have been enduring the devouring of the sealed day and night. We also have to face the attacks of that lunatic 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. Our internal organs are already close to exhaustion, and our potential has long been exhausted. Even our divine sense has suffered heavy injuries, and it will be hard for us to last any longer. Also, our divine sense is on the verge of collapsing at any moment. The current us, other than waiting for death, what else can we hope for? Chapter 8:12. With his sensitive senses, he could clearly sense that from the 2 fingers that June Moxie had placed on his wrist, there was an extremely mystical energy that flowed into his body and flowed 1 round along his meridians. Although it had only flowed 1 round, he could clearly feel that the meridians and bodily functions that were originally on the brink of exhaustion were actually showing signs of recovery. After 300 years of continuous overexertion, his body was like an old tree that had grown for 10,000 years and had already reached the limit of its age. Although it still seemed to be full of vitality on the outside, but the internal functions had completely decayed and aged. The only thing he could do was to slowly wait for the weathering of old age and finally turn into nothingness. However, this indescribable mystical energy had caused his body that was originally almost withered to suddenly glow with a trace of vitality, a trace of inexplicable vitality. It was like a warm spring breeze that suddenly blew across the desert. Although it had not really recovered its vitality, but as long as this spring breeze continued to blow, it could even transform into rain. Then this desert would sooner or later become an oasis. The situation is indeed a little serious, but it is not to the extent that there is no way. June Moxie retracted his fingers, and his eyes flashed as he said, "Later, I will specially refine a few elixirs for you. First, recuperate for a period of time, and let the exhausted vitality grow again. Then, take another type of elixir to regulate the depletion of your body. After recuperating like this for a year, I believe that the so-called internal problems in your body will completely disappear without a trace. At that time, it will be a piece of cake for you to completely recover your strength. With the profound accumulation of the seniors and the rest over the years, it will allow you to take a step further. Actually, the biggest loss for you is that the power of the Xiandan has shrunk to the point of overdrawing. It is not a big deal." June Moxie said lightly. "Completely recover? Or even take a step further? Not a big deal." Deer Chasing Wind was first shocked. The shrinking of the Xiandan. This was basically the end of the mystical beasts. And it was actually not a big deal. But what followed was a wave of ecstasy. Although he did not fully understand it, he had an inexplicable confidence in June Moxie's mysterious power. Being able to restore his health and extend his lifespan was already something to be happy about. Now, according to June Moxie, even his strength could be restored. He might even be able to take another step forward. Yes, as long as you can completely follow the recuperation method I designed, with your foundation and the accumulation of these years, you will definitely be able to improve further. Although you have paid a great price in these 375 years, it has also made you work harder than anyone else. Although most of the cultivation power that you have cultivated has been consumed, there is one result that cannot be erased. That is your meridians. After more than 300 years of hard work, they have already expanded a lot. Although the seal will endlessly absorb the power that you have painstakingly accumulated, it cannot change your meridians. So, once you recover your cultivation, you'll be able to get twice the result with half the effort when you cultivate again. In a very short period of time, you will definitely be able to replenish the power that you have lost during this period of time and improve further. But there is still a prerequisite, and that is to ensure that your bodies are fine. June Moxie smiled slightly. This bit of investment was worth it. Among these 9 people, any one of them was at least a Saint King. Moreover, whether it was fate or position, they were bound together with him. When they truly accepted him, June Moxie naturally accepted them as well. However, June Moxie still had a plan. With his current ability, if he was willing to use Hong Meng Purple Chi to heal these senior Beast Kings, they would recover faster and the effect would be better. The reason why he did not do so was not because he was afraid, but because time waited for no man. June Moxie did not have much time left. With the strength of these 9 Beast Kings, it would take at least 4 to 5 days to heal each of them. Although a total of 40 days was not a long time, the Dongfang family outside could not wait for this little bit of time. It will take a lot of effort to heal them. Seniors, you may return to your tribe to recuperate first, or use this period of time to inherit the Beast Kings of your tribe and improve the current strength of Tian Fa as soon as possible. Also, I request Wolf Sage King to follow me temporarily. I will refine a suitable elixir in the shortest time possible and ask Wolf Sage King to send it back. Also, during this period of time, I need to go out once. A cold light flashed faintly in June Moxie's eyes. There are some things that need to be resolved as soon as possible. The reason why young Master June had chosen the Wolf Saint King to accompany him was because in these 300 years, the wolf race had completely declined. Even if the Wolf Saint King wanted to pass on his legacy, he couldn't find a suitable candidate for the time being. Is the matter urgent? Do you need help? Deer Chasing Wind stood up. His originally extremely gloomy state of mind became bright again. He felt that he had regained his vitality. There's no need. As long as Crane King and Eagle King can quickly contact the Xian beasts left in the various aristocratic families and send back the news as soon as possible, it will be fine. June Moxie said solemnly. At the end, he added another sentence. Carry out this matter as soon as possible. Understood. Long Crane and Eagle King Sky Splitter immediately agreed and sent out the message. Among the flying Xian beasts outside, several level 9 peak flying Xian beasts immediately soared into the sky and quickly disappeared in the clouds. When June Moxie left, Deer Chasing Wind suddenly called out to him, and his expression was a little awkward. He opened his mouth a few times before he finally said, June Moxie, you may have many magical abilities, and your potential. I have lived for close to 1,000 years, and there is no one who can match up to you. But there's one thing. Shui Yin is definitely recovering under your arrangements right now. I just want to tell you. His voice was a little incoherent. It wasn't that he was uneasy, but he really didn't know what to say. He was so anxious that sweat started to form on his forehead. June Moxie was not anxious at all. He listened quietly without a hint of impatience. You must have thought that once we Xian beasts transform, we will definitely be old fellows that are hundreds of years old. But this view is wrong. In reality, before we transform, if we do not break through, we will definitely meet with death. But once we transform, it is equivalent to a new beginning of life. In other words, from the day we transform, we start counting our age. And comparing the lifespan after transformation to the lifespan of humans, 10 years is only equivalent to 1 year for you humans. Do you understand what I'm saying? So, Shui Yin is actually just a little girl. Deer Chasing Wind stammered. He was so tired that sweat appeared on his forehead. It was beyond his ability to explain such a strange thing. I understand. A warm smile appeared on June Moxie's face. The reason why Deer Chasing Wind was so nervous was not because he was afraid of him or because he had something to ask of him, but because it was all for Mei Shuyan. For Mei Shuyan's happiness. Just like a senior when he saw his junior getting married, the kind of worried that she would be bullied by her husband's family, looked down on, etc., etc., etc. For Mei Shuyan to have such a senior, June Moxie was very happy for her. And the union between Xian beasts and humans has always been this. Deer Chasing Wind heaved a sigh of relief, but then he started stammering again. This time, even he did not know what he should say or what he was saying, because this question had always been a taboo in the entire continent. So as he spoke, he realized that he was even more unable to explain, but June Moxie understood what he meant. June Moxie nodded cautiously and said solemnly, I understand what you mean. Shui Yin is my wife in this life forever. Even if she can never regain her human form, I will still hold her original body and marry her. He blinked his eyes and faintly smiled. Perhaps you guys don't know this, but my reputation has long since become infamous in the entire continent. To me, marrying a profound beast as my wife is merely gossip. It can't be considered a scandal. Long Crane and the rest who knew the inside story all laughed uncontrollably. Deer Chasing Wind heaved a huge sigh of relief and said repeatedly, That's good, that's good, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Mei Shuyan's happiness, to the 9 of them, was a big matter of utmost importance, because if Mei Shuyan was wronged, they would definitely not have it easy. Moreover, these 9 people loved and doted on Mei Shuyan from the bottom of their hearts, and would not allow her to be wronged. June Moxie was a little depressed. Deer Chasing Wind's last sentence was really not that good. Why did you say that's good? That's good, when you heard that my reputation was bad. Was it glorious to have a bad reputation? After making arrangements for his family, June Moxie did not stay any longer. With the fastest speed, he came to the edge of the Tian Fa forest, to the area where the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops were. This area had already been completely forged by Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun into an iron plate. From far away, one could hear the sounds of training, as well as a series of rough howls. The atmosphere here seemed to be even more dangerous than the depths of the Tian Fa forest day and night. Relentless and cruel training caused everyone's strength to increase at an astonishing speed. It had only been a few days since the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops arrived at this new camp, but their strength had improved quite a bit compared to when they were in Tianxiang. Without another word, Jun Moxie directly entered the secret room and summoned all the leaders to report the latest developments. Chapter 8:13. What's the situation like now? Is it progressing smoothly? Jun Moxie asked. Solitary Eagle smiled with an unusually proud expression on his face. It's progressing smoothly. The 300 members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer have all reached the Tian Xian realm. The other 5 have even reached the peak of the Tian Xian realm. As long as their mental states are stable, they can break through to the Shun Xian realm at any time. How can it be so fast? This unexpected piece of good news caused even Jun Moxie to be greatly shocked. It was truly too unexpected. To be honest, the people who belonged to the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer were almost all retired veterans of the battlefield. These people had strong wills and an unyielding fighting spirit that grew stronger the stronger they met. However, not a single one of their innate talents was truly outstanding, and they had long since missed the optimal age to cultivate profound energy. The reason why they were able to obtain such extraordinary achievements, apart from their unyielding fighting spirit, was mainly due to the effects of the pills provided by Jun Moxie. Apart from that, the extremely high-intensity training they had endured was also an extremely important factor. Almost every day was a training session filled with the fear of death. It was only under such bloody training that the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer had been able to obtain their achievements today. But even so, Jun Moxie had never imagined that their progress could be so fast. Looks like even you have underestimated the effects of the bone-tempering pill. Solitary Eagle glanced at him and said, although the heaven-defying effects of the bone-tempering pill are only effective on the bones, don't forget that most of the meridians move along with the bones. As the bones of a person become more coordinated, the meridians will also adapt accordingly. This is a complementary process. A trace of a smile appeared on Feng Zhuanyun's usually stoic face. After everyone has taken the bone-tempering pill, they have gone through daily life-risking training. This is equivalent to squeezing out everyone's greatest potential. While they are putting in so much effort, they have also subtly completed the cleansing of their meridians and tendons again and again. In this way, it was tantamount to them achieving the effect of being reborn in a different way. In the past, the biggest obstacle to their progress, although it wasn't completely gone, it was much, much smaller. If you were to examine their current aptitudes, you would find that all of them had already transformed to at least above average level. Some of them had even reached the upper level. Therefore, it is no coincidence that I am able to obtain my current achievements. That's great. Originally, they were limited by their natural endowments, and their achievements were limited. Now they have been unexpectedly reborn, and their muscles and marrows have been cleansed, allowing them to have considerable plasticity. This is really good news. Great news. Jun Moxie was overjoyed. This result was really a pleasant surprise that exceeded his expectations. What about you? Jun Moxie looked at Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao. We have selected a total of 1,000 children. 300 people had been eliminated in Tianxiang. And after this period of training, another 695 people were eliminated. Right now, there were only 5 people who were qualified to become assassins. Other than that, including the original Tian, Can, and DK, there are a total of 7 people. Lung Ao hesitated for a moment, then said, other than that, of the few people that Luo Yun selected in Tianxiang, 3 of them were crippled in the mission, so they're considered eliminated. There are still 3 more people. Including these 3 people and the 2 of us, there are only 12 people. They completely meet the basic requirements to become assassins. June Moxie nodded lightly and said in a gratified manner, 12 people, which means that apart from the two of you and Tion, Can, and DK, there are still 8 people selected. Not bad, not bad. 8 assassins out of 1,000 people. This probability is already very good. Looks like Luo Yun and Lung Ao. The two of you are indeed skilled in selecting assassins. I am very satisfied with this result. Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao looked at each other at the same time, obviously surprised. When Lung Ao reported, the reason why he hesitated was because there were too few people. The two of them were strict and had a drive that would rather have nothing than have something substandard. After the great waves washed away the sand, the only things that could catch their attention were these. They had thought that June Moxie would fly into a rage because there were too few people. After all, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer division did not lose a single member, but they did not expect June Dashao to be so satisfied. Although Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao were both geniuses of their generation, brimming with talent and extraordinary strength, and Lung Ao was even the disciple of the supreme assassin Chu Chuan, they were ultimately limited by their experience and could not understand the logic of how ordinary people were. One must know that it was easy to say the word assassin, but how many truly outstanding assassins were there in the entire Xian continent? The so-called method of nurturing assassins could only be possessed and mastered by large families that had gone through hundreds and thousands of trials and tribulations. Whether it was family, temperament, personality, habits, temperament, bone structure, it was rare to find someone who could completely meet the requirements in every aspect. It did not mean that someone who knew how to kill was an assassin. The requirements to become a qualified assassin were even more difficult than choosing a scholar in the imperial examinations. Bailey Luo and Lung Ao were extremely talented, and their cultivation was not something an ordinary person could match up to. Their judgment was also a notch higher than others, so their standards for choosing talents were naturally much harsher. But the seedlings that could catch there, I would definitely be the most outstanding and also the most promising. To be able to get 8 out of 1,000 people was already a rather high ratio. Jun Dashao himself was the most outstanding assassin, and he knew even more about the difficulty of finding talented assassins. How could he not be satisfied? These 8 people, including the two of you, and Tion, Can, and DK, still need to go through further training and elimination. June Moxie said slowly, becoming an outstanding assassin has never been an easy thing. His eyes revealed a look of fascination as he said slowly, do you know what an assassin is? What is a true assassin? Hearing this question, Solitary Eagle and Feng Wan Yun laughed at the same time. It was a kind of laughter that could not help but be amused. But Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao became serious at the same time. These two talented assassin youths actually understood the deep meaning of this sentence at the same time. This was June Moxie's test, and also an important lesson for the two of them. So the two of them knew that this was not a simple question, but a kind of foreshadowing. Because June Moxie would not let them answer. Third young master, you are an amateur. In my eyes, all the Xian cultivators in the entire continent are assassins. As for me and Feng Wan Yun, we could be said to be the cream of the crop in the world of assassins. Solitary Eagle laughed, his long hair swaying even though there was no wind as he said this proudly. But after he finished speaking, he realized that Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao were looking at him strangely. It was a kind of laughable, pitiful belittling, and even a clown. What are you doing? Why are you looking at me like that? Are you two rascals trying to rebel? Solitary Eagle could not help but be angry. After his anger, he actually felt guilty under the stares of these two assassins. Did I say something wrong? Didn't I say it quite well? In my opinion, there are only 2 truly qualified assassins in the entire Xian continent. June Moxie smiled slightly, looked at Lung Ao, and said, one of them is your master, the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan. The other one is you. Lung Ao said with some admiration. This sentence was not flattery, but he recalled what his master had said personally. It was almost exactly the same as what Jun Moxie had said in front of him. That day, when Chu Chuan returned from the Battle of Blizzard Silver City, he said to his disciple, "In the whole world, there is only one true assassin, and that is the person you are following now. Because even if I were to compare myself to him, I would feel ashamed of my inferiority, far inferior." At that time, Lung Ao had asked, "Why does Master have such a high evaluation of this person? I have never felt that he has the potential to be an assassin." Chu Chihuan sneered and said, "If you could see through it, would he still be qualified to be an assassin? Not to mention the king of assassins? Kid, your experience is still very shallow." At that time, Chu Chuan only said a few words and left quietly. You can look carefully at any time. He will naturally be in a state of defense. Even in the safest place, it is the same. And this state of defense is never deliberate. It is a habit that even he himself cannot change. Except for some strong people who can confine space, no one can sneak up on him. One more thing, he can attack at any time. This is also a habit, a natural habit. It is also an instinctive habit that he cannot avoid. This is only one of his characteristics. Experience it well. Attack and defense, these two opposite movements appearing on the same person at the same time and having both at all times. This statement was not only absurd, but also impossible. But why did Master say so? Therefore, since then, as long as there was a chance to come into contact with Jun Moxie, Lung Ao would carefully observe. Through a lot of observation, Lung Ao was shocked to find that what his master said was actually true. It was clearly difficult to unify the opposite movements, but he could actually integrate them perfectly, taking the most correct response at any time, and even integrating them into his own instincts. What a miracle! No wonder when he was so weak back then, he did not hesitate to use a fatal assassination that consumed his divine soul, and under the circumstances where he was heavily guarded, he still could not kill him. Chapter 814. I believe that the vast majority of people in this world will think that only such people are worthy of being called assassins. Jun Moxie laughed in a peculiar tone. In their eyes, if assassins have other forms, they will be surprised and ask, Is this still an assassin? The last sentence was asked by Jun Moxie in an extremely exaggerated tone of surprise. Anyone who thinks so is an idiot, a complete idiot. Lung Ao could not help but be amused by him. How could a real assassin be that idiotic? If they were really like that, wouldn't it be equivalent to telling others, "I'm an assassin, be on guard against me, catch me quickly"? Yes, anyone who thinks so is an idiot. And the so-called assassins in their eyes are just pretending to be pretentious. And the kind of pretentious idiot, using their own lives to pretend to be pretentious idiots. Jun Mo Xie chuckled and said, "But it's undeniable that it's precisely because the world is filled with such preconceived and stubborn fools that the true assassin clans are able to be covered up even more seamlessly. The success rate of doing things is also relatively higher. So, we have to thank that group of idiots. That group of cute idiots." As he spoke, Jun Moxie glanced at Solitary Eagle and said regretfully, "As for some people who think that those who can kill people are assassins, sigh, it's fine if I don't mention it." Solitary Eagle's dark face suddenly turned red, and he cried out in dissatisfaction, "Then tell me, what kind of person is an assassin?" A real assassin is a person who can complete the target mission under any circumstances. As long as an assassin makes a move, the target is a dead person. There has never been, and there can be no exceptions. Jun Moxie's expression became solemn, and he said slowly, "We often say that if one fails to hit, retreat unscathed. This is the style of a real assassin. However, this statement is also extremely wrong in essence." He said in a low voice, "If one fails to hit, retreat unscathed, and flee thousands of miles away, that is an assassin, not an assassin." Then what about an assassin? As he said this, even Lung Ao was a little confused. An assassin should be able to hit the target with one strike and retreat unscathed. Far away, Jun Moxie said calmly. An assassin's martial arts doesn't have to be high. It can even be far inferior to the target. However, the grasp of timing must be accurate to the point of lightning. As long as the timing is right, a Yu Xian can even escape unscathed after assassinating a Shun Xian. This is the time to strike. Jun Moxie raised his eyebrows as he looked at the solitary eagle and said, "Old eagle, you don't need to be unconvinced. With your current strength, you're on par with the supreme assassin Chu Chihuan. If they were to fight head-on, they might not be able to determine the victor even after fighting for 3 days and 3 nights. However, I dare to bet that if Chu Chihuan really wanted to kill you, one move would be enough." The solitary eagle's expression was a little awkward as he muttered, "I don't believe it. Although I'm nothing compared to those peak existences, I won't be finished off by that fellow Chu Chihuan in one move. Right? I won't believe it, even if you beat me to death." "Why wouldn't I believe it?" "I believe it because I can finish you off in one move," Feng Wanyun said with a cold face. "If you sleep in the same room with me every night, I can kill you thousands of times every night. Especially when your snoring can even stun Xian beasts. I believe that as long as Chu Chihuan finds a similar opportunity, he can finish you off in one move. Is it very strange? This is probably what Mo Xian meant by choosing the right time." Everyone laughed and felt relieved. The truth was indeed so. There was nothing too profound in the world. As long as one could see through the crux, even the strongest existence could be killed by someone who didn't know martial arts at all. So, you must always remember that it's definitely not an easy task to become a qualified assassin. Jun Moxie looked at Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao and said, "In a few days, I will assign some assassin missions to you. An assassin must be honed through fresh blood and human lives." Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao's spirits were lifted, their eyes burning. That's right. What kind of assassin would they be if they hadn't been tempered through fresh blood? No matter how strict their supervision and training was, it was the same. All right, what level are those 8 fellows at now? Jun Moxie took 2 steps and suddenly asked. Apart from Tian Can and DK, the other 6 have already reached the Earth Xian realm, because they basically have a certain level of martial arts foundation, and they're not weak, so their improvement is relatively fast. As for Tian Can and DK, they've already reached the peak of Yu Xian's level. Lung Ao's face revealed a look of lingering fear. Tian Can and DK, these 2 fellows have already trained themselves harshly to an unimaginable level. If others use their bodies to train, then the 2 of them use their lives to train themselves. The degree of cruelty of their training, even Luo Yun and I dare not imagine. Jun Moxie let out a light breath, suddenly recalling the scene of his training in his previous life. It was as if he saw that stubborn youth who practically trained until his entire body was covered in cuts and bruises, not even having the strength to move a finger. He couldn't help but sigh. If you can't place yourself on the edge of life and death at any time, how can you become a peerless assassin that shakes the world? It's not the time for these assassin youths to take the elixir yet for now. Jun Moxie raised his head and looked at Solitary Eagle. But the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer have already fulfilled the conditions. Wake them up, give everyone 2 days to take the elixir and consolidate their realm. Then we'll have something big to do immediately. Taking the Vitality Linkage Elixir, Vitality Gathering Elixir, and Heaven Vitality Elixir won't take more than 2 days, right? Solitary Eagle said, in surprise. Not just these 3. This time, everyone will get 2 chances to advance. Jun Moxie smiled slightly and looked at Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyan. Not only them, even the 2 of you can advance again this time. According to my estimation, after this advancement, you can at least reach the realm of a 2nd-level Venerable. Instantly, Solitary Eagle, Feng Wanyan, Bailey Luo Yun, and Lung Ao's eyes widened like bells. What? How can there be such a good thing? In an instant, Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao's eyes turned red with jealousy. They only hated that their own strength had advanced too slowly. Previously, they had taken 3 great elixirs before they could advance to Shun Xian's level. Looks like this time they were going to fall behind by a level again. They didn't even think about it. For them to have such an achievement at their age was already an unprecedented and terrifying achievement. They were envious of Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun. But how could Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun not be envious of them as well? To be able to meet Jun Moxie at such a young age. They're really King lucky. If we could meet Jun Moxie at their age, we might already be martial saints or even higher. In the next 2 days, the flying mystical beast brought back news of the situation of the various families, allowing Jun Moxie to understand what was happening outside. At the same time, he also heaved a sigh of relief. These families were all in trouble, but their safety was temporarily not a concern. However, if this situation were to continue to develop like this, these few families would really be finished. But it was not urgent now. There was still time. Jun Moxie seized the time to refine a cauldron of healing elixirs, along with detailed instructions on how to take it and things to take note of. He let the wolf St. King Lang Xiaofeng bring the elixirs back to the Tian Fa forest. Then, he focused on recovering from his injuries. 2 days later, this place was taken over by Jun Wui and his wife to continue their unfinished business. As for Jun Moxie, he brought the majority of the new and improved troops out of the Tian Fa forest quietly. After 2 consecutive advancements, their strength had greatly increased, causing the appearance of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops to change greatly. After taking the Vitality Linkage Elixir, Vitality Gathering Elixir, and Heaven Vitality Elixir, these hot-blooded men rushed to Shun Xian's level in one go. Among them, there were even some who directly rushed to the 3rd grade of Shun Xian's level in one go. Then, after taking the Boundless Elixir and Heaven Extremes Elixir, there was another qualitative leap. 300 people, the weakest, had reached the 4th grade of Shun Xian's level. Most of them had the strength of a supreme being, but there was a small portion who directly soared to the heavens in a single step, reaching the level above the supreme being. Although this batch of people had forcefully increased their strength, it was inevitable that their realm would not be stable, and it would bring great difficulties for their future growth. However, Jun Moxie did not care so much, because right now it was already extremely urgent. As for their realm, they would raise it in battle. If there were any problems, he would wait until he broke through again and could refine better elixirs to make up for it. The group left the Tian Fa forest, and Jun Moxie immediately started to make arrangements. The troops were split into 9 groups, one led by Solitary Eagle to the Sikong family, the other led by Feng Wanyun to the Duanmu family. As for Blizzard Silver City, there was no need to send anyone for the time being. There was still a group of 50 people left to follow Jun Moxie to the Dongfang family. As for the remaining 6 groups, Jun Moxie only gave them one mission: cause trouble. Completely caused trouble. On this continent, all the forces that belonged to the 3 holy lands were to be destroyed for me. Protect themselves and destroy all the worldly forces belonging to the 3 holy lands, but they could not allow their own forces to be damaged. They could not be exposed. On this basis, they could do whatever they wanted. It would not be a problem even if they poked a hole in the sky. The 3 holy lands had gathered all the experts, and while it had increased their strength, it had also greatly benefited Jun Moxie. In this world where there were no tigers in the mountains, and the Supreme Being was the boss, Jun Moxie had released more than 300 experts who were above the Supreme Being level at once. Before the 3 holy lands' own strength appeared, such a team would definitely be able to sweep through the entire continent. Furthermore, these people all had a mystical elixir on them that could allow them to recover from their injuries under any circumstances. Chapter 8:15. Do you 3 holy lands want to reorganize the 3 big clans that are on good terms with me? Then I want all the clans that are attached to you, 3 holy lands, to become deaf and blind. Let's see who can outplay who and who will be the first to die. You, Mo Wu Dao, want me, Jun Moxie, to know that there are some people in this world that I can't afford to offend. I, Jun Moxie, also want you to know that there are some prices that I can't bear, but the three holy lands may not be able to bear it either. It's just a massacre. In this world, this young master is afraid of many things, but the one thing he is not afraid of is killing people. Jun Moxie squinted his eyes as he watched the 8 teams disappear from his sight like 8 wisps of smoke. His mouth slowly curled into a cruel smile as he muttered, "3 holy lands. Mo Wudao, I didn't want to go against you so early, but you really forced me. Jun Moxie, too much." And Zhang Mubai, an expert of the Holy Emperor level. Is he really that great? If this young master doesn't play with you until you're crippled, then I'm not the evil monarch. Just you wait. Jun Moxie remembered the words that 9 serenities and 14 masters left behind after he escaped. Just you wait. That cold sentence was like a strange curse. Even Jun Mo Xie, who wasn't the person involved, couldn't help but shiver. This sentence was originally left behind by a hooligan after he was defeated, but when it came out of 9 serenities and 14 masters' mouth, it was exceptionally different. At the very least, after hearing his words, the expressions on the faces of the 20 Saint King level experts, and above, all became a little more serious. 9 serenities and 14 masters. Oh, 9 serenities and 14 masters. I hope you can recover your strength soon. You are an indispensable part of my plan. The corners of Jun Moxie's mouth curled into an extremely evil smile as he chuckled. Chu Chihuan has taken the blame for me so many times previously, there's no point in letting him continue to take the blame. Furthermore, his level is slightly lower than mine. It seems like he's not enough. However, these 9 nether frost blades behind me can totally create a true black pot. The Holy Emperor, Lung Ao, who had been following him, looked at the strange smile on his face and could not help but shiver. That smile was too evil and lascivious. They sped all the way. The group of 63 people was like a sharp black sword, quickly disappearing into the bright spring sunshine of the continent. Now, it was already the end of spring and the beginning of summer. Everywhere was filled with beautiful colors. Along the way, Jun Dashao could be said to be very pleasing to the eye. Jun Moxie did not use any flying Xian beasts on this trip, because in the eyes of the 3 holy lands, Tian Fa's Xian beasts were already Jun Moxie's private property. If a large number of flying Xian beasts were to fly in the sky, it would be equivalent to pointing out a target for the 3 holy lands, telling them that Jun Moxie had left Tian Fa. In that case, wouldn't they become live targets in the blink of an eye? 3 to 4 days had passed, just as Jun Moxie's team was hurrying along like an arrow in the dark. Extremely tragic bloodshed had already broken out in several other areas at the same time. From different directions, close to a dozen forces that had pledged allegiance to the 3 holy lands were wiped out. Some of them were even the external contact points of the 3 holy lands. A thick color of blood began to spread from different places slowly. The entire continent seemed to be aware of this bloody atmosphere, and the whole world was shocked. Another 8 days later, Jun Moxie and the rest had already entered the forest where the Dongfang family was hiding. However, the current Dongfang family had once again moved back to their old residence before they retired. That place in the depths of the forest had already become the Dongfang family's warehouse. Across this forest on the opposite side was where the Dongfang family was now. Seeing that the destination was not far away, everyone naturally did not delay and increase their speed again. Jun Moxie, who was walking at the front, suddenly felt an inexplicable aura fluctuation in front of him. Looking up in the depths of this forest, there was actually a faint green smoke rising. With a thought, Jun Dashao first stopped silently and then gently waved his hand behind him. Lung Ao and the others behind him were also vigilant people. Although their eyesight was not as good as Jun Moxie's at this moment, they had all sensed that something was wrong. Seeing Jun Dashao's signal, they each moved, and in an instant, they had already disappeared without a trace. Jun Moxie very carefully released his own divine sense, and in the detection of the divine sense, there clearly appeared 4 figures surrounding a bonfire and barbecuing food. Everyone looked at ease, as if the place where they were at was a safe place. After the divine sense circled around the 4 people, Jun Moxie immediately concluded that each of these 4 people had the strength of a superior supreme. In his current eyes, this level of strength was admittedly not a very powerful character. However, in the secular world where the strength of a supreme was enough to command the world, it was already equivalent to an invincible existence. The combined strength of these 4 people was enough to destroy any so-called super family in the world. And where they were now, it was not far from the residence of the Dongfang family. This made Jun Moxie think a lot more. For no reason, there are a total of 4 experts here roasting birds. One must know that this place, no matter which direction, is at least 1,000 miles away from the nearest town. And for these 4 people to appear here, it was really a little too much. If there was only one person, it could still be explained as a recluse, wandering the world, wandering the mountains and forests. But for such top experts to gather here, a total of 4 people, it could no longer be explained as a coincidence. If they were not sent here by the 3 holy lands, who else could it be? They gathered here, probably to monitor the movements of the Dongfang family, so that they could report the latest and most accurate news to the 3 holy lands at any time. This time, the Dongfang family, which had returned to the world, was naturally not weaker than any of the secular families. In terms of combat strength, it was more than enough to show disdain for the current generation. But that was only in the general sense. If judged by high-level standards, there were not many real top experts. Back then, the 3 Dongfang brothers had indeed reached the level of superior supreme after taking the elixir, but it was only superior supreme. It was still difficult for them to enter the eyes of the real experts. The only person in the Dongfang family that could enter the eyes of Jun Dashao seemed to be Dongfang, the old lady. At that time, Jun Moxie felt that he could not see through the level of the old lady's strength at all. According to the battle that year, she alone suppressed Xiao Xingyun and Bu Yu to stay at level 4 of Shun Xian for the rest of his life, but she was not injured at all. Then, the old lady of Dongfang must at least be at the level 6 or 7 of Shun Xian, at least equivalent to Solitary Eagle at that time, or even higher. Reaching the level of Shi Changshao was more like it. With this as the starting point, after 10 years of accumulation, if the old lady took the Vitality Linkage Pill, Vitality Gathering Pill, and Heaven Vitality Pill, and other nature-defying medicines, she should at least be able to reach the level of level 11 or 12 of Xin Xian. It was not impossible for her to reach the level 1 of Venerable. But now, the old lady had to take charge of the whole situation and did not dare to be negligent. She might not even have time to take care of the affairs in the mansion, while the 3 brothers of Dongfang were each in charge of one side, and the whole Dongfang family was busy. With so many experts above the Supreme Master here, although they could not destroy the Dongfang family, every move of the Dongfang family could not escape their eyes. Once there was any change, they would spread the news at the first time and let the people outside make arrangements for the Dongfang family. Jun Moxie had figured it all out in an instant. A cold light flashed in Jun Dashao's eyes, and he lightly waved his hand again. Then he made a special gesture. 2 fingers of his index finger and middle finger made a circle. The meaning of this gesture was, "I want him alive." Bailey Luo Yun, who was behind him, also waved his hand, and a group of over 60 people spread out in a fan shape, slowly moving in that direction. The 4 people were obviously not aware of this. In fact, ever since they arrived here, they had not met any threats. As time passed, they were not that careful anymore. Furthermore, the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops were experts in concealing their tracks. Even if they were fully focused, it might not be of much use. One of the long-bearded men flipped over a few geese that were already roasted to a shiny golden color, emitting a tempting aroma. He said casually, "This mission, although it sounds serious, it is actually very easy. The Dongfang family is only a secular family with an undeserved reputation. We swaggered in and out, and not a single person noticed us. What a joke." Old Wong, there's only one word that makes sense in your words. Another person sneered and said, only the word secular makes sense. Have you forgotten that under the blockade of our three holy lands, supreme beings are already the strongest people in the secular forces of the entire mainland? Don't tell me you're still hoping that this Dongfang family can produce a few more venerables and saints? Another man said, don't be so sure. It is impossible for them to produce saints, but it might not be the case for venerables. 2 days ago, when I was on duty and sneaked into the Dongfang family, I saw the head of the Dongfang family, the old lady of Dongfang. That old woman is not simple. According to my observation, this old lady of Dongfang's skills are definitely not weaker than ours. In fact, she might even surpass us. She is very unfathomable. So what? No matter how strong she is, she won't personally go on a mission. What we want to obtain is the information of the people who are going on the mission. With the people that we have hidden around the targets, it is definitely more than enough to deal with those who are above supreme level like the three brothers of Dongfang. Chapter 8:16. He smiled. It's the same for killing people and exterminating an entire clan. Only a meticulous and concentrated attack from all directions, one wave after another, will attack the bottom line of this clan spirit, causing them to slowly collapse on their own. In the end, even if they still have the strength to fight back, they have already lost the last bit of strength to retaliate because of the excessive shock, because their spirit has completely collapsed. This is the highest realm of killing. These words were definitely not spoken by some senior expert from the three holy lands. It was even more excessive than some so-called evil demons. And in reality, this fellow himself was also a vicious and merciless demon. He had also been famous for a period of time in the past. Thousand Souls Butcher Wong Wei Ran. This name was definitely a terrifying name that could make children stop crying more than 100 years ago. The other three people's expressions changed when they looked at him. One of them said, Brother Wong, even if it's to exterminate an entire clan, it's fine to just kill them one by one. It's satisfying and saves time. Why must you torture people like this? It's not only exhausting, it's also damaging to one's virtue. Wong Wei Ran chuckled. In life, it's all about pleasure. All of you have not experienced it, so you don't understand the joy of being able to wreak havoc on others. That feeling is extraordinarily wonderful. The other three all shuddered and thought to themselves, we are all normal people. How can we compare to a great demon like you who does all kinds of evil? But then they heard Wong Wei Ran say, actually, ever since I joined this palace, I haven't been talking about this for a long time. But this time, to deal with these few big clans, the sect leader seems to have mobilized too many people. It's really like using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. But I wonder if you guys noticed? This time, the sect masters were very selective in their deployment of troops. And this choice makes it clear that the sect leader clearly doesn't want these few clans to be easily finished. He wants to torture and ravage them to his heart's content. Although the sect leader didn't say this out loud, but, the meaning behind his words is clear. Oh, we'd like to hear Brother Wong's opinion. The other three all showed expressions of interest. The people that the sect master has sent out this time are all from the heretical sects of the past. They are unreasonable and even notorious. Just take me, Wong Wei Ran, for example. Who has ever treated me as a righteous and chivalrous person? Even if he entered the three holy lands, so what? I'm still the Thousand Butcher from back then. Wong Wei Ran laughed coldly. But why did the sect master send us here? He also appointed me as the leader of this group of people. Among the four of us, even if I don't want to belittle myself, whether it's martial arts, cultivation, or even intelligence, I'm not a cut above the others. I still have this bit of self-awareness. If I have to say that I'm better than others, it's only in torturing people. It can be said that I have some tricks up my sleeve. Why didn't the sect master send those guys with a sense of justice? Haven't you thought about it at all? Wong Wei Ran chuckled coldly. Also, before we came, The sect master only gave us a few simple instructions and did not specify any specific steps. This is clearly saying that we can make our own decisions and do whatever we want. No matter what we want to do, it's not a problem. No wonder the sect master only said, we can get rid of them when the opportunity arises, but did not mention any specific strategy or deployment. We thought that it was because the other party is a secular aristocratic family and is weak, so there's no need for any specific strategy. So it's actually like this. The other three were enlightened. Our sect master's younger brother, the wandering venerable, died tragically in the snowy mountains. There were also as many as 600 top experts from the three sections. None of them were weaker than the four of us, but they were all buried in the snowy mountains. There were also 9 saints, but only the disheartened venerable magic I had survived. How can such hatred be vented with a simple sentence of kill? Wang Wei Ran said earnestly, Sect Master wants to vent his anger in his bones, but he's too embarrassed to say it out loud. After all, he can't afford to lose the reputation of the 3 holy lands for 10,000 years, and he has too many scruples. If our underlings help him handle it well, there will naturally be benefits. This is also the so-called people helping people in the sedan share. But in this way, what if someone really wants to settle the score? Won't the few of us become the scapegoats? You said it yourself just now. So many of our experts died previously. The other party's strength must be extremely strong. If there are more changes, the sect master will definitely not make a move. But we are indeed the pawns that are most easily abandoned. At that time, as long as the few of us are pushed out, the sect master can rest easy, but we will be doomed eternally. Although the other 3 understood, they still furrowed their brows. They were worried about this aspect. Over 100 years of accumulated wisdom, no one would take it for nothing. Settle the score? Who will settle the score? For 10,000 years, only Jun Moxie would dare to fall out with the 3 holy lands for a few secular aristocratic families. Now that Jun Moxie, that little thief, is already dead, who else will settle the score? Wang Wei Ran snorted and said, for 10,000 years, how many people really dare to go against the 3 holy lands? Your concerns are completely unreasonable, reminded by him. The 3 of them were greatly relieved. That's right. Holy Emperor Zhan did not care about his reputation and decisively killed Jun Moxie, eliminating a huge threat for the 3 holy lands. This kind of action is really admirable. You must know, a holy emperor's reputation is more important than his life. That's right. Since ancient times, all the strong have cherished their reputation. Even the common people also know that they want their face. Holy Emperor Zhan was decisive and destroyed his own reputation, not hesitating to sneak attack and kill Jun Moxie. This is indeed great wisdom and courage. The 4 of them praised together. It was as if that Holy Emperor Zhan's sneak attacking a junior without caring about his status was actually a heroic deed that shocked the heavens and earth and made the gods weep. Today, it should be Old Sun's turn to be on duty, right? Wang Wei Ran looked at a man in white beside him. Let's go after eating the roasted bird. Just treat it as a trip to the Dongfang family to have some fun, exercise, and digest the food. The man in white beside him, Old Sun, had a large black mole on his face. He smiled and said, it's fine. It's not the first time I've gone to the Dongfang family. When was it that dangerous? However, the 3 of you, after this matter is over, I will be plucking the women of the Dongfang family. When the time comes, you must help me keep this a secret. I'm only on duty to gather information. I don't know anything else, much less care about it. Wang Wei Ran smiled and winked. That's right, we won't see anything. Old Sun, just enjoy yourself. How can you not eat your fill after such intense exercise? Ha! The other 2 said. Thank you for your kindness. Old Sun was instantly overjoyed. To be honest, these few years in the Holy Lands really made me feel suffocated. My cultivation technique almost went wrong. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have agreed to the recruitment. Huh. The 4 of them laughed together. After hearing all that you said, only the last sentence made sense. You really shouldn't have agreed to the recruitment of the 3 Holy Lands. Because if that was the case, you wouldn't have to lose your life here for nothing. A very gentle voice said, Who? Who is it? The 4 of them jumped up at the same time. That voice was clearly right beside their ears, but none of them noticed it. Then, one could imagine how powerful this person was. The 4 of them quickly turned around, only to see a young man in a white brocade robe, with the most genial and elegant smile on his face, standing only 3 feet away from the 4 of them with his hands behind his back. His calm gaze was fixated on the 4 roasted geese in front of the 4 of them. He smacked his lips and said, What a nice smell. It's really a pity that the 4 of you don't become chefs. Why do you want to become martial artists? That bloody killing. How can it be as safe as being chefs? Wang Wei Ran's heart sank. The other party was actually able to come within 30 feet of them without making a sound. This was already a forbidden area where he could kill people with just a wave of his hand. He almost tried to release his divine sense to probe the other party's body, but to his horror, his divine sense couldn't detect anything. The other party was clearly standing there, alive and well, but his divine sense detected nothing. Oh no! Wang Wei Ran's strength might not be very high, but he had a lot of experience in the pugilistic world. After roughly understanding the other party's strength, he couldn't help but cry bitterly in his heart. He hurriedly put on a smile and cupped his hands, saying respectfully, Young master, may I ask if you have any instructions for coming here? Haha, if you need help, the 4 of us brothers can do our best. As long as we can help, we definitely won't refuse. Oh, really? Jun Moxie tilted his head and looked at him with interest. Of course. Young master, feel free to instruct us if you need anything. Wang Wei Ran's attitude became more and more respectful. To people like them who were originally from the evil path, as long as they could preserve their lives, even if they had to call someone grandpa, ancestor, or father, they would do it. As long as they could escape with their lives, they could just wait for a chance to take revenge in the future. Their lives were the most important. However, right at this moment, Old Sun blinked his eyes in bewilderment and asked abruptly, May I know young master's name? This sentence made Wang Wei Ran curse in his heart. Stupid. Until now, you still can't tell who this person is? If you pretended not to know, there would still be a chance of survival. Now that you asked directly, you're so stupid. Do you want to die? Even if you want to die, don't drag me down with you. Can't you see that I've been speaking so humbly and not asking for his name? Other than Jun Moxie, is there another person like this in this world? Are you a pig? Wait, if he is Jun Moxie, then why didn't he die? Holy Emperor Zhan clearly said that he killed him on the spot, and there were many martial saints present at that time, and they all saw it with their own eyes. Wang Wei Ran started to feel suspicious, but his doubts didn't last long. Can't you guess? Jun Mo Xie blinked his eyes in bewilderment and asked, Could it be that you still haven't recognized me? His expression was a little gloomy, as if the other party didn't recognize him was something he couldn't accept. Chapter 817. If I told you that I am the 9 serenities and 14 masters, would you believe me? Jun Moxie chuckled. That's impossible. Old Sun shouted. Oh, you also know that it's impossible. Then, if I told you that I am the king of Hermitage, Missouri Wu Dao, would you believe me? Jun Moxie blinked his eyes. Well then, if I told you that I am actually your father, would you recognize me? Jun Moxie grinned, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. Jun Moxie, don't go too far. Old Sun shouted angrily. His eyes were red, and he could no longer hold back his temper. Shut up, Mother Kerr. You are purposely looking for a lover for your mother. You have already recognized that I am Jun Moxie, but you are still pretending in front of me. What? Lack of fatherly love? Do you want me to teach you a lesson? This young master can take advantage of you this time, and reluctantly become your father for half a day. Jun Mo Xie scolded as he rolled his eyes. Jun Moxie was trying to buy time, so that Bailey Luo Yun and the others could complete the encirclement. Now that Bailey Luo Yun and the others were in position, they were surrounded by more than 60 Supreme Masters. It was a piece of cake for them to deal with the 4 people in front of them. They no longer had to worry about them escaping. Why would June Moxie have any interest in talking to them? Especially when it was a bastard who cultivated this kind of evil technique. June Moxie had no interest in talking to him at all. June Dashao felt that he had given this scum too much face by scolding him. Having such a cheap son was a blasphemy to him. Why did he take advantage of him just now? You. Old Son was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He didn't expect that his kind words would be insulted and scolded by the other party. Not only that, he was scolded so badly that he even got himself a cheap father. He was seething with anger, but when he turned his head to look, he found that his 3 companions' expressions were a little off. When he looked up, he suddenly felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured down on his head, instantly extinguishing all the flames of anger in his heart. Moreover, he felt an icy cold air from the top of his head all the way to his stomach. Instantly, all 4 of them had the same expression and movement. Their bodies were stiff, their mouths were wide open, and their eyes were as wide as light bulbs, filled with fear. All around, there was a dense crowd of burly men. All of them were expressionless, but their eyes were shining with a bloodthirsty light. Step by step, they marched forward in an orderly manner. With every step he took, the ground would shake. With just a glance, the 4 of them were shocked to discover that among these people, their ages were not very old. They seemed to be in their 30s or 40s, but their strength was extremely strong. There were at most 10 people who were slightly weaker than them. Almost all of them were superior, supreme experts. Every single one of these people carried a piercingly cold, murderous aura. Their eyes were cold and piercing, making one think of a pack of wolves in the cold winter night. In addition to their tall and sturdy physiques, they were extremely burly. When they pressed down in unison, it was as if a huge mountain had suddenly collapsed. Such a heavy atmosphere almost made it hard for them to breathe. Where did June Mo find so many experts? And all of them are so young as well? It was obvious that the 4 of them had no time to think about this question. Their minds were filled with despair. With such a huge disparity in strength, the 4 of them had no chance of winning at all. The only way was to self-destruct. Drag them down with us. Perhaps this was the only way to cause some losses to the other party. But the most important thing was that they didn't want to die yet. The 4 of them almost cried at the same time. Take them all down. June Moxie waved his hand, and his body floated up like a white cloud, leaving the central circle. Roar. Following a loud roar, a burly man suddenly leaped up. His tower-like body descended from the sky, and a strong gust of wind came crashing down. There was only attack, no retreat. His first move was as powerful as a thunderbolt, and it was as if he didn't care about dying together with them. This burly man's attack was like an explosion. The 50 to 60 burly men were like hungry wolves who suddenly found a group of white and delicious lambs. They roared and rushed forward. The 4 of them cursed in their hearts. Oh my God, there are so many of you, but you still want to go all out against the 4 of us. Even if you want to bully people, you can't bully people like this. You don't even give us a chance to negotiate. Thinking of this, the 4 of them were completely depressed. Negotiating with that brat June Moxie was like getting scolded. Using your hot face to stick to the cold buttocks of others. It was completely unreasonable. Today's matter was destined to not end well. The 4 of them who were in a desperate situation made up their minds. And with a roar, they unsheathed their swords and punched and kicked forward. Bam! With a loud bang, a chaotic battle broke out. However, from the start of this chaotic battle, the few evil experts from Hermitage had suffered greatly. Not only were these burly men not weaker than them, they were also proficient in joint attacks. Their attacks, intentionally or unintentionally, were actually coordinated seamlessly. Once the 2 sides clashed, the 4 of them immediately fell into a state of confusion. As they defended with all their might, they couldn't help but suffer many punches and kicks. Instantly, blood splattered from their mouths and noses. June Moxie, fight me one-on-one if you're so capable. What's the use of numbers to bully the weak. Ah! Old Sun had just shouted out in panic when he suddenly screamed. A huge fist landed on his mouth. Instantly, all his teeth were broken, and his cheeks also burst open. The broken teeth actually flew out his cheeks. Wang Wei Ran was the most cunning. Taking advantage of the chaos, he forcefully endured a few attacks and suddenly pushed his two companions in front of him. Then, he jumped up with lightning speed, and with a shake of his body, he climbed up the treetop of a nearby tree, wanting to escape. The two people who were pushed by him were already struggling left and right, getting beaten up everywhere. Their situation was extremely tragic. Now that they were pushed by him without any defense, they couldn't help but stagger a few steps. With a dang sound, their swords were knocked down, and then over a dozen fists greeted them at the same time. The two of them only had time to cry out in grief and indignation, "Wang Wei Ran, you're shameless," before they were knocked unconscious. Wang Wei Ran, who had just climbed up the treetop, laughed coldly in his heart. Escaping was the most important thing right now. Why would he care about being shameless? He only had one life. Just as he was about to speed up and escape, his vision suddenly darkened. When he opened his eyes, he couldn't help but scream in shock, his hair standing on end. A handsome face was almost touching his own, and the tips of their noses were almost touching. They could almost smell each other's breath. Just as he was about to turn and escape, that person suddenly retched and then scolded angrily. "You actually have freaking bad breath. It's going to kill me." He raised his hand, and with a series of crackling sounds, in the blink of an eye, he had actually slapped him dozens of times like a rainstorm. Wang Wei Ran's head shook rapidly in the air like a rattledrum. His long hair was like a young girl who had taken ecstasy, swinging left and right crazily. And as he swung, he spat out his broken teeth. After what felt like a long time, he finally fell to the ground with a blooming face and a pig-like head. With a bang, he smashed a big hole in the ground. Then, he felt as if the world was spinning in front of him, and the sky was filled with shining stars. He shook his head a dozen times before he finally regained consciousness. When he opened his eyes, a sharp sword was already at his neck, and his dantian had also been kicked harshly by someone. Not far away, a clean-looking young man in white was retching, losing his composure. "Why does this old fart's bad breath smell even worse than a fox's? This young master has really suffered. I'm really bloody unlucky." Who else could it be other than the great assassin Bailey Luo Yun? He had been secretly supervising the battle, keeping an eye out for any fish that slipped through the net. Seeing this fellow trying to escape without a care for his face, how could he let him go? Naturally, he followed him silently. Wang Wei ran in a hurry, but Bailey Luo Yun chased even faster. In just a short time, they had already bumped into each other. Before this, Jun Daxiao would often appear out of nowhere and prank Duge Xiaoi and Han Yinming, scaring the two girls to the point of screaming loudly. Then, Bailey Luo Yun and the rest would hold their stomachs and laugh out loud. Bailey Luo Yun was just about to learn from Jun Moxie's usual trick of winking and greeting him with a hello. Who would have thought that the moment he opened his mouth, this fellow opposite him would scream as if he had seen a ghost? This scream wasn't a big deal, but the strong bad breath coming from Wang Wei Ran's mouth made Bailey Daxiao, who had always loved cleanliness, suffer greatly. Bailey Daxiao only felt an indescribably horrible stench assaulting his face. He wanted to cover his mouth and nose, but it was already too late. He could only feel the stench lingering in his mouth for 3 days. He probably wouldn't have any appetite for the next few days, and might not even taste meat for 3 months. Bailey Luo Yun really couldn't understand. Why didn't this happen to Jun Moxie when he did things like that? He occasionally played a prank, but he almost died from the stench? Could it be that people really couldn't be compared to each other? Was it a crime to imitate? Jun Moxie looked at Bailey Luo Yun's gloomy look and snickered in his heart. How could it be so easy to learn this young master's teasing skills? You should know that the ones who have been scared by this young master are either Guanqing Han, Duge Xiao Yi, or Han Yinming. Those three are all great beauties. Even if they scream in shock, their fragrant sandalwood mouths will still emit waves of intoxicating fragrance. Unlike you, who found an old man with a mouth full of yellow teeth to tease. This young master will be surprised if you don't die from the stench. Take your time to vomit. Perhaps you'll get used to it as you vomit. The four of them were carried over like sandbags and placed neatly in front of Jun Moxie. Jun Dashao coughed and placed his hands behind his back. He shouted in a dignified manner, "Enter the court." Chapter 8:18. After a round of torture, Jun Moxie very naturally obtained the information that he needed the most at the moment. Of course, this process was naturally very unpleasant for Wang Wei Ran and the other three. Just by looking at the four of them with their eyes wide open, filled with fear and a look as if they would rather die than live, one could tell how horrifying this process was. But towards these fellows who were originally evil and depraved, whether it was Jun Dashao or the members of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, none of them had any psychological burden. In fact, they even found it a little pleasing to the eye. After all, they had punished these four bastards so that they would no longer have the ability to harm others. Jun Moxie frowned slightly. He felt extremely worried about the information he obtained from the four of them. In the confessions of these four people, Mo Wudao had sent people to arrange no less than 200 mission targets for the Dongfang family to assassinate. And every single one of them was a hard nut to crack. Not to mention that some of the targets even had experts sent by the three Holy Lands hidden beside them. Among those 200 over targets, at least 20 to 30 of them had experts hidden beside them. Although it was less than 10%, this was already a rather terrifying number. If not for the three Holy Lands, it would definitely be difficult to send out so many experts. And in reality, the three Holy Lands even had the ability to arrange people to protect every single target. But to do so would be a little too obvious. Only with this arrangement, most of the missions would be successfully completed and only 10% of the missions would fail. Only then would it not raise any suspicions. And as long as this was carried out slowly, not only would it exhaust the strength of the Dongfang family, it would also not allow the world to find any fault or criticize them. The reason was very simple. As an assassin, if he could not complete the mission and was killed instead, it could only mean that he was not strong enough. It was really a very normal thing. And who would know that there was actually the shadow of the three Holy Lands behind this? So no matter what, no matter which side died first, it would not affect the reputation of the three Holy Lands at all. As for those missions that had a high probability of success, they naturally had to pay for it. But it would definitely not be the three Holy Lands paying for it, because there would be people who would pay for the three Holy Lands, and they would even scramble to fork out the money. Those who did not manage to get the chance to pay would even be filled with regret. Moreover, even if the Dongfang family received all the money, so what? His entire family was dead. So what was the point of having more money? In the end, the people from the three Holy Lands would hypocritically step forward to mediate and investigate the matter, claiming to uphold justice for the world and thoroughly investigate the massacre of the Dongfang family. Wouldn't that give them face? And at that time, the Dongfang family would have accumulated a considerable amount of wealth, which would ultimately fall into the pockets of the three Holy Lands, and the methods used to deal with the Sikong family and the Duanmu family were exactly the same as the methods used to deal with the Dongfang family. They were much weaker, so they did not need to spend much effort at all. Not to mention that they were already suppressed to the point where they could not even lift their heads. Jun Moxie could not help but shake his head and sigh. This Hermitage Palace master, Mo Wudao, was really a genius who was good at scheming. If he followed his plan, not only would he be able to take revenge, he would also be able to sell a favor and vent his anger. Finally, he would gain both fame and fortune, and it would be a perfect ending. How could he be praised with just the word genius? Jun Moxie had always thought that Li Yuran was despicable enough, and her methods were not bad either. There was probably no one else in the world who could compare to her. Even he himself would not be her match if he only fought with his wits and wits. But looking at it now, there really was always someone better than you out there. This elusive world of a mortal's palace lord really shouldn't be brothers with Mo Xiaoyao. This guy should be Liu Ran's twin, and he should be the elder brother. However, what made Jun Moxie feel troubled was that although these four fellows understood Mo Wudao's general plan, they did not know which targets had experts hidden around them. But this was not surprising. After all, there were too many people involved, and they did not care about this. It was reasonable that they did not have any impression, and Mo Wudao would not let them know too much. Jun Moxie could not help but feel anxious. He kept praying in his heart that the Dongfang family would not make their move now. If that was the case, and any losses were caused, it would be an irreparable regret, especially for his three uncles. They were the closest people to his mother and him. Jun Moxie stood up with a cold expression and said, "Set off at full speed to the Dongfang family." "Yes." Bailey Luo Yun agreed and asked, "Then these four people?" The moment he asked this, the four of them looked at him with pleading eyes. They were truly afraid of death. "Do you still need to ask? Are you still an assassin?" Jun Moxie scolded unhappily. With a flash of his white robe, he had already disappeared. His voice came from afar. "Quickly, don't waste time." Bailey Luo Yun hurriedly agreed and said calmly, "Kill them all. Quickly follow young master. Don't waste time." He said it calmly, as if he was describing a small matter of slaughtering chickens and pigs, as if the ones who were about to accept this fate were not four living people. The faces of Wang Wei ran, and the others changed. Just as they were about to curse, no less than 10 swords had already pierced through their bodies. When Jun Moxie arrived, the Dongfang family was exceptionally calm and peaceful. After reporting his name, he quickly saw the third master, Dongfang Wendao, coming out personally to welcome him. There was obviously a hint of reproach in his expression. "Mo Xia, why did you really come? How can a child like you be so ignorant? The target of the 3 holy lands was originally only you. Now that you've appeared, you've given them a chance to exact revenge. If anything happens to you, what do you want us, as your uncles, to do? We are still secondary. Your grandmother, your mother, what do you want them to do?" Although his words were full of reproach, Jun Moxie's heart was filled with warmth. He forcefully suppressed the sudden surge of kinship in his heart. Jun Moxie smiled calmly. "Uncle, don't worry. Since I dare to come out, I naturally have absolute confidence. Otherwise, do you think your nephew is the kind of reckless person who roams around without any preparation? Confidence?" Dongfang Wendao snorted and said, "When I was your age, I felt that I was quite confident in jumping up to the sky and plucking the moon. Wasn't it just a little bit more? But can you really do it? You're so young, still wet behind the ears, and you're already boasting so shamelessly. How many storms have you been through? How many treacherous people have you seen? Do you know what is confidence and what is arrogance?" Jun Moxie admitted defeat. This third uncle of his was too direct. But at his age, he actually felt that he was quite confident in plucking the moon. This confidence was really too big. However, Dongfang's third uncle's heart was filled with good intentions. This, Jun Moxie was very clear. Although Dongfang Wendao knew that Jun Moxie's current skills were not ordinary and had already far surpassed his uncle's, the storm this time could not be mentioned in the same breath as the previous one. In Blizzard's Silver City, although the 3 holy lands were powerful, they were still within the scope of being able to contend with them. But now that the 3 holy lands had revealed their true strength, how could there be anyone in the mortal world who could resist them? In the eyes of the Dongfang family, no matter how fast Jun Moxie's growth was, or how outstanding his current strength was, how could he be a match for the 3 holy lands? At this time, Bailey Luo Yun and the rest had also arrived at the entrance of the manor. Dongfang Wendao sighed in disappointment and said helplessly, "Since you're here, you can play for 2 days first. Then, the 3 of us will personally escort you back to Tian Fa." AI. Youngsters really don't know how high the heavens are and how deep the earth is. When he said the last sentence, his eyes suddenly widened and he looked at the 60 to 70 people behind Jun Moxie in shock. He suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air and swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. He said with difficulty, "You? Where did you get so many experts from?" Why do they all look so familiar? It's you guys? You. How did your strength increase so quickly? With Dongfang third uncle's eyesight, he could naturally see that the 60 to 70 strong men in front of him were not any weaker than him. And these people were not Shin beasts at all. They were people he knew. This was not strange. Many of the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer members were people that Dongfang third uncle had seen before. They had even received pointers from the three brothers. However, at that time, they were only at the Earth Xian Tian Xian level. But that was already enough to shock the three brothers. Now, after a few months, they had actually reached this realm in a single step, and all of them were able to stand shoulder to shoulder with him. How is this possible? This was too miraculous. The third master of the Dongfang clan felt like he was dreaming. These are a lot? I don't think so. Jun Moxie looked at him in shock. I've already split my forces into 9 different groups. There are only 50 to 60 people here. Why do you think it's a lot? Besides, the speed at which these fellows improve is really not praiseworthy. It's too slow. Even I can't stand it. Why do you say it's fast? Uncle, you can't be so sarcastic. Jun Dashao asked in shock. What? Split my forces into 9 groups? That is to say, there are at least 8 other groups with the same battle strength as these? This speed of improvement is still too slow? Dongfang Wendao was completely speechless. What this nephew said, was it still human? In a few months, everyone had risen 7 to 8 levels, too slow? And he said that I was being sarcastic? What kind of person was this? How could he let others live? Dongfang Wendao covered his forehead with his hand. His body swayed a couple of times as he groaned. He then shook his head as if he was dreaming. Then he said as if he was sleep-talking, "Follow me." Chapter 819. As soon as they entered the courtyard, they saw the meeting hall of the Dongfang family. Dongfang Wendao slapped his forehead, turned around, and said, "Oh, right. You better be careful of your first uncle. Don't look at how much you've improved. Your first uncle will still mess with you. In short, you're doomed this time." After saying that, the corner of his mouth twitched, forming a strange smile. What happened to first uncle? Jun Mo Xie had too many things to deal with recently. So, he had long forgotten about that prank. So, he was genuinely surprised by this question. You're asking what happened? Don't you know what you've done? Dongfang Wendao suddenly laughed in a strange manner. His wide mouth was so wide that it almost reached the back of his ears. He was overjoyed as he said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Change the position again. Wow. Jun Moxie was choked by his third uncle's weird movements. He suddenly remembered the masterpiece and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I have to say, you're really too mischievous. Ha! You forced your first uncle. Ha ha! Such a serious person, to stand and change positions every night. It's so hard. He even King floated in the air. Ha! Dongfang Wendao had been trying his best to control himself. But when he thought about this, he couldn't help but want to laugh. The more he laughed, the funnier it became. In the end, he held his stomach and squatted on the ground, rubbing his tears. Jun Moxie laughed for a while. Suddenly, he was dumbfounded. Now that he thought about it, he seemed to have buried a bomb here. It seemed that his first uncle had already come back to his senses and wanted to teach him a lesson. What should he do? Bailey Luo Yun and the others obviously didn't know what the uncle and nephew were laughing about. They looked at them eagerly, their faces full of gossip. Right at this moment, an explosive shout suddenly resounded. Third brother! What nonsense are you talking about? The accent was heavy. It was obvious that he was very angry. Following the loud shout, a burly figure appeared in front of everyone. The newcomer had an extraordinary appearance, with 3 strands of long beard fluttering in front of his chest, a square face, red phoenix eyes, reclining silkworm eyebrows, a straight nose, and a square mouth. He was full of majesty. It was Jun Dashao's eldest uncle, Dongfang Wenqing. Dongfang Master had arrived. However, Dongfang Old Master's originally fair face was now maroon. His eyes were spitting fire, and he was panting heavily. The more one looked at him, the more he resembled Guan Fuzi. Jun Moxie, you little bastard. You come at the right time. I thought that you would hide in Tion Fa for the rest of your life. If you don't come, I will personally go to the Tion Fa forest to find you. Now that you, little bastard, have delivered yourself to my doorstep, you've saved this old man the trouble of a long and arduous journey. If I don't properly teach a bastard like you a lesson today, then wouldn't I go against the laws of the world? Dongfang First's face turned purple as he shouted explosively with a voice that was like a thunderclap, and it was extremely ferocious. Following this thunderous roar, Uncle Dongfang strode forward, stretched out his fan-like hand, and grabbed at Jun Moxie's chest. Bailey Luo Yun and Lung Ao looked at each other. Was this the legendary meeting between uncle and nephew? Why was the process so strange? That old uncle of his had been laughing so hard that his stomach hurt the moment he saw him. Then, this old uncle of his had changed young Master Jun's titles 4 or 5 times, and had even started a fight with him? What kind of complicated relationship did this family have? Jun Mo screamed and broke into a run. How could he dare to be caught by Dongfang winching in such a situation? This was his biological uncle. He could not even think about fighting back. He could not even parry. The only thing he could do was run for his life. If he was really caught, how could he run away after being tortured? Grandma, save me, Uncle is going to kill someone, save me, Young Master Jun slipped away from Dongfang when Qing's armpit like a wisp of smoke. He screamed miserably the entire way, as if he had already been abused to the point of no return. You lawless little bastard, how dare you run? Stop right there. Uncle Dongfang was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He chased after him with big strides. In an instant, the nephew and uncle chased from the courtyard to the hall, and then out of the empty hall. Jun Moxie shouted for help all the way. His voice was so loud that it was deafening. The whole Dongfang family was in chaos. Countless people craned their necks to see what was going on. Seeing that the situation was not good, Jun Dashao immediately fled to the inner courtyard in search of help. Uncle Dongfang gritted his teeth and chased after him closely. He looked determined to chase him to the end. As the saying went, if you go to heaven, I'll chase you to the Lingxiao Hall. If you go to sea, I'll chase you to the Crystal Palace. If you go underground, I'll chase you to the Mansion of Hell. If you go west, I'll chase you to the Grand Hall. In short, no matter where he went, he had to vent his anger. Uncle Dongfang had never been so humiliated in his life. But for many years, he had no descendants, which really made him anxious. How could he let go of a glimmer of hope that he had finally grasped? There were 3 ways to be unfilial, and having no descendants was the worst. Therefore, after getting Jun Moxie's secret method of bearing children, Uncle Dongfang basically followed it meticulously. Every move he made was carried out strictly according to Jun Moxie's secret method. He did not dare to be negligent after a lot of hard work. The results were undoubtedly remarkable. A few months later, he saw several of his wives and concubines with bulging bellies. Needless to say, Uncle Dongfang was very satisfied and happy. At that time, if he had met his good nephew, Jun Moxie, he would probably have knelt down and kowtowed to him. Why would he care about seniority? It was the grace of saving a man's dignity. But ever since he unintentionally found out the truth from a conversation with Dongfang, Wan Jian, Dongfang First Master finally understood that the medicine that Jun Mo Xie had given him had already cured all his ailments. There was no need for him to use any incantations or postures to get pregnant. In other words, not only had he been saved by his nephew, he had also been toyed with mercilessly. Unfortunately, this scandal was known by his second brother. What was even more unacceptable was that his second brother was a blabbermouth. So, first his third brother found out, and then, for a period of time, Uncle Dongfang could hear laughter no matter where he went. This made him suffer from a new problem. He was allergic to laughter. As long as he heard laughter, he would fly into a rage without asking why. However, who didn't have some happy and funny things in life? For example, if someone accidentally farted in public, it could even cause a burst of laughter. Not to mention that there were too many similar things like this nowadays. Uncle Dongfang was about to go crazy. Whenever he heard laughter, he would think it was directed at him. At this moment, seeing the culprit suddenly appear, Dongfang Wenqing was furious. She would not let it go no matter what. She would never let it go. She would never let it go. Ahem. What's the matter? What's the matter? Is there a rebellion? In the chase, a dignified cough sounded. The old lady of Dongfang came out of the inner courtyard calmly. Just then, he saw the entire courtyard in chaos. The second master of Dongfang, Wen Jian, hid behind and covered his mouth. He was already on the verge of convulsions. The big savior finally arrived. Jun Moxie felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He quickly hid behind the old lady, looking aggrieved. Grandma, Uncle is crazy. He wants to kill me as soon as I come. What's going on? Help me. The old lady of Dongfang rolled her eyes helplessly. Who would kill you for no reason? Isn't it all because of you? Do you really think I'm a fool? However, the old man's cultivation was very experienced. His face was full of astonishment as he scolded Dongfang Wenqing. Stop. You two are making a scene. What a disgrace. Look at what the two of you, one big and one small, have done to the courtyard. Even if the younger one is playful, are you addicted to playing? What's going on? Tell me the cause and effect. There was no doubt that the old lady would side with her grandson when her nephew and uncle were fighting. However, this seemingly fair question almost caused Dongfang First Master to faint from anger. Tell me the cause and effect. This matter, is it something that can be said? Suddenly, his face turned purple. He pointed at Jun Moxie with trembling fingers. Okay, little bastard, you just wait. Jun Moxie cried out in an aggrieved manner. Uncle, you can't talk about this if you don't talk about it. Grandma's right. Even if I did something wrong, you can say it and everyone can judge it. If I really did something wrong, then I'll let you beat me up to vent your anger. But you didn't say anything and you just beat me up. I feel wrong. I've just arrived at my home from thousands of miles away, and I haven't even had a drink of hot water, and I've already been beaten up. Who can bear this? Nephew, what did you do wrong? You can tell me. At this moment, looking at the expression on Jun Dashao's face, it was definitely comparable to the eternal grievance of flying snow in June. A heartbreaking song. Where can I find a bosom friend in the world? Dongfang First Master's eyes widened so much that they almost popped out of their sockets. He was so angry that he could only snort, but he couldn't say a single word. He was definitely going to suffer this loss today. Ha! At the gate of the courtyard, the third master, Dongfang Wendao, who was already sitting on the ground laughing, suddenly burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that he lay on the ground with snot and tears streaming down his face. He kept hitting the ground with his big fist, and his whole body convulsed and trembled violently. In the end, he was out of breath. Dongfang Wenqing finally had a place to vent. He shouted, "Third brother, why are you laughing like a fool over there? Don't you have any decency?" As he spoke, he rushed forward. Chapter 820. Are you done? This time, I'll let your third uncle bear it for you. Isn't it satisfying? The old madam rolled her eyes at Jun Moxie. Then, she couldn't help but laugh. You little fellow, you're getting more and more scheming. I really have to be on tenterhooks when dealing with you. You even dare to plot against your uncle? Aren't you a little too bold? Jun Moxie laughed dryly and said, It's all Uncle's fault. Actually, it was just a moment of carelessness. It was just a coincidence. It was purely a coincidence. Was that chant also a coincidence? The old lady glared at him. Jun Moxie was dumbfounded. Grandma, let's get down to business. I heard that my family was in danger, so I didn't stop to rest. I traveled day and night, and I didn't sleep or rest to rush over. So, I'm really tired. Jun Moxie tried to find a topic to talk about. Danger. There's indeed. But you shouldn't have come back. The old lady snorted calmly and stepped forward. This is just a small disturbance. We can still deal with it with our own strength. Oh, it seems that Grandma already has a plan to deal with the 3 Holy Lands attack this time. Jun Moxie asked cautiously. He could see that in the whole family, The one with the strongest self-esteem and the most protective was this old lady in front of him. The three holy lands are undoubtedly powerful, but our Dongfang family is not to be trifled with. If the assassin family doesn't kill or die, how can it be called a family of the martial world? The old lady snorted and said, "You don't have to worry so much. We'll deal with it when it comes. That's all. You accompany Grandma for a few days and then quickly go back. The matters here don't need you. The Dongfang family has the ability to deal with it. Of course, with Grandma's divine power, it's just a matter of time to sweep the world." He, who didn't know that Grandma used to roam the Jianghu alone with a sword, and her name shook the world, moving unhindered across the four seas. She was really a beautiful woman, and a woman was more outstanding than a man. The sword looked down on the world, making all the bearded men in the world feel ashamed. There was a poem that went like this: millions of people were helpless, and not a single one was a man. A generation of beauties will laugh at the world. This, her prestige, has shaken the world since ancient times, incomparably unparalleled. Jun Moxie flattered without any regard for money. He was very familiar with it. All right. Your grandfather Jun Jiantian may like your flattery, but your grandmother won't fall for it." The old lady's face was even more rosy, and her eyes were gentle as she spoke contentedly. His footsteps were sonorous and filled with a murderous aura. "Exactly. To be honest, this is what I admire the most about Grandma. Who in this world doesn't like being flattered?" Everyone forgot their own surname after being praised by others. All the people in high positions had this problem. But Grandma, you are unique, and your eyes are like a torch. You are untainted from the mud, clear from the ripples, calm and wise, and wisdom as vast as the sea. You never accept flattery from others. You can't be compared to those people. How am I flattering you? I'm just speaking the truth, and all of them are the truth. Jun Moxie continued to flatter, and continue to speak the truth. That makes sense. It was true that humans could not accept too many compliments. One needs to be rational and have at least the ability to judge. This is what people in high positions need to do, and only then can they make the right decisions. You like to speak the truth and not be hypocritical. I like this very much. Speaking the truth, doing honest things, you won't lose out anywhere. The old lady squinted her eyes and smiled contentedly. Her face revealed a faint radiance, as if she was the only one who was clear when the world was dirty, and the only one who was sober when everyone was drunk. Dongfang Wanjian, who was behind her, revealed an expression that he couldn't bear to watch. He raised his eyes to the sky, and his Adam's apple bobbed up and down. How could this be considered honest? Oh my God! But he could only mutter these words in his heart. If he really said it out loud, his entire body would be very uncomfortable. That's right, for example, the three holy lands this time, provoking Grandma is definitely their bad luck for 8 lifetimes. On my way here, I even met 4 experts from the elusive world of immortals. They actually came up with a so-called evil plan. Hee, it's like showing off in front of an expert. Jun Moxie's eyes moved quickly, and he pulled the topic back. They actually want to do this. Actually, I also know that it's completely useless. Under Grandma's astute and deep foresight, those so-called evil plans are simply a joke. Once they really meet, it will be like pouring hot soup on snow, blowing away dust with a flip of a palm, crushing down on them like Mount Tai, and using a rocket launcher to kill a mosquito. After explaining the 3 holy lands' evil plan with great difficulty, Jun Moxie was so tired that his whole body was covered in cold sweat. When he said the last sentence, he actually spilled the beans. But the old lady's expression was already solemn, as she did not pay attention to what Jun Moxie said at the end. Jun Moxie was trying his best to make her happy, and the old lady could naturally see this. Her grandson knew the pressure and hardships she had been under during this period, so he deliberately tried to make her happy, which was also a sign of filial piety. The old lady was naturally happy to pretend to be confused. Besides, it was really a very comfortable thing to let her grandson act. But when it came to the substantive matters, The old lady could no longer act with him. In fact, when June Moxie mentioned the arrangement of the 3 holy lands, the grandmother and grandson had tacitly stopped this friendly conversation. The old lady walked slowly, planning and calculating. When she came to the hall, she suddenly asked, "Second brother, what's the result of the negotiation now?" Dongfang Wenjian was startled and hurriedly replied, "According to your previous instructions, they are still delaying the time. I've already instructed them not only to calculate the price based on their strength, but also the distance, consumption, and possible accidents. I've especially told them to negotiate bit by bit and haggle over the price bit by bit. So, both sides are exhausted from the negotiations." June Mo Xie laughed heartily. This kind of negotiation was going to take forever, because there would be new problems added at any time. And to talk about assassins, they actually needed to negotiate bit by bit about the distance and bargain bit by bit. It would be strange if they didn't go crazy. It was basically a disguised refusal, but it was more tactful, hoping that the other party would back off. It was really thanks to this grandmother of mine. How did she come up with such a mischievous and effective weird method? Such a thing could be considered rare since ancient times. Well, if you can't control your temper, then we just don't talk anymore. It's not that we don't want to take the job, but that your employer has given up on his own accord. Anyway, the initiative is in the hands of the Dongfang family. We just won't take action because we haven't discussed the conditions. Don't tell me that the 3 holy lands will put down their face and attack us. It must be said that using this method to deal with those hypocrites was really a good idea. Well, delay the rest first. Take a dozen or so jobs first. We still have to take action eventually, and we can't keep dragging this indefinitely. The old lady waved her hand and said, "Remember our 3 don't kill principle. As for the rest, you can make the decision." But Mo Xie just said that the 3 holy lands have already arranged people around the target. If we take action rashly, won't we be walking right into the trap? Second Master Dongfang was stunned. Our family can still mobilize quite a number of people. Although there aren't many high-level assassins, there are still quite a number of intermediary assassins. The old lady stepped up the stairs. We had to tolerate it previously because we weren't strong enough. Now that we are strong enough, why don't we earn the money? Moreover, we can further show the prestige of our Dongfang family, and at the same time weaken the enemy. With such a ready-made advantage of both fame and fortune, it wouldn't be too much even if we take on hundreds of clans. Strong enough? What do you mean by strong enough? Second Master Dongfang was still a little confused. Stupid. The old lady turned around and looked at her second son resentfully. Mo Xie brought a total of 70 superior supreme experts with him this time. Don't tell me he brought these people from thousands of miles away just to watch the show? Can't they take action? Dongfang Wenjian was even more confused now. He reminded her tactfully, "Mother, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Those people aren't the assassins of our Dongfang family." "This isn't good." June Moxie covered his forehead with his hand, speechless. "You idiot. Why can't you think a little bit more?" The old lady was instantly furious. "As long as you don't say anything, I don't say anything, and everyone else doesn't say anything, who would know where those people are from? Would the 3 holy lands know? Even if they have suspicions, can we admit it ourselves? Why are you as stupid as your father?" Second Master Dongfang was embarrassed, but he immediately understood. Mother is right. June Moxie really couldn't help but laugh. The old lady let out a long sigh and pulled June Moxie's hand. She said sadly, "Mo Xie, I've let you see a joke today. Look at your uncles. All of them are so stupid. Grandma's white hair is completely because of the 3 brothers. They're already so old. Why can't they understand? When will I be enlightened?" Dongfang Wenjian's face darkened. He didn't dare to say anything, but he was muttering in his heart, "What matter is it that made us angry? It's obviously because of little sister's matter. The moment you open your mouth, it's actually my fault." June Moxie laughed and said, "Grandma, don't worry. In a few days, I'll specially refine a furnace of pills for you. It'll guarantee that you'll regain your youth. That head of white hair is also not a problem. It'll turn back to black in an instant. You'll have the standard black hair and youthful complexion. Let's not talk about whether you're joking with me or not. I'm already old. What's the use of black hair? Don't let others call me an old monster. Grandma was just saying that casually just now. It's pretty good now. The old lady sighed with some emotion. June Moxie laughed and didn't comment. He simply changed the topic and said, "All right, Grandma. What do you mean by no killing? This is our Dongfang family's rule. Don't kill civilians, don't kill honest officials, don't kill good people. Anyone who asks us to do something must first investigate the target's background, including the evidence of their crimes. Otherwise, when we find out that something is wrong, we have the right to unilaterally terminate this operation. We might even backfire on the person in charge." The old lady smiled slightly. Chapter 821. The old lady thought for a while and compared the strength of both sides. Even if the other side had set up an ambush, there wouldn't be too many people around a target. On her side, she could only take on 10 missions at a time. If she split it up, there would be at least 5 to 6 superior supreme experts accompanying her for each mission. This force was enough. The old lady confirmed once again that there were no mistakes before smiling kindly. Since that's the case, you could just pick a team to go out and play with. However, you have to pay attention to your safety. If you fall or bump into something, I won't agree to it. June Moxie agreed repeatedly, but a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect that the blood debt this time would actually start from being a guest assassin, a killer. Wasn't this the life that he had always dreamed of? The blood debt that the 3 Holy Lands owed was finally going to be repaid with his own hands, one by one. 3 days later, June Moxie and Dongfang winching led over 20 Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer experts and 2 Sky Rank assassins from the Dongfang family out of the Dongfang family's gate and headed north. There were a total of 5 targets along the way. For this mission, they took on a total of 15 missions. The old lady changed her mind for some reason and split into 3 groups. Each group was responsible for all the missions in one direction. Dongfang Wenjian and Bailey Luo Yun were in one group, while Dongfang Wendao and Lung Ao were in another group. Whether it was intentional or a coincidence, June Moxie and first Uncle Dongfang Winching just had to be in the same group. This made June Dashao extremely depressed. But the old lady made it very clear, if you don't want to, you don't have to go. Just stay and accompany me. I'm afraid that you'll bump into something. How could June Moxie dare to say that he was unwilling? He knew very well that the old lady was actually hoping that he wouldn't go out. No matter how strong June Mo Xie had become, he was still a grandson in the old lady's eyes that she needed to take care of and protect. This was something that could not be changed even after 30, 50, or even 100 years had passed, even until the end of time. Therefore, although June Moxie was reluctant, he had no choice but to agree and walk with Uncle Dongfang. The horses galloped all the way north. The 2 targets along the way didn't even require June Moxie and Dongfang winching to take action. They just sent out 2 members of the Heaven Destroyer team and 2 Heaven Great Assassins from the Dongfang family, and they were easily taken care of. The nephew and uncle duo hid at the side to observe the situation while waiting for the expert guarding the target. In the end, they ate the cold wind for half the night and waited for nothing. It seemed that these 2 targets were not protected by the experts sent by the 3 Holy Lands. Now, the group was on their way to their 3rd destination. Less than 100 miles ahead is the location of the 3rd target. And this target is also the most difficult one to deal with among the 15 assassination targets we accepted previously. Dongfang Winching rode on the horse and pointed with her horsewhip. Her expression was slightly solemn. "Oh, I'm really interested to know what kind of person this is. Even you, Uncle, find it difficult to deal with? Is it one of those hidden experts?" At this moment, June Moxie was riding on the horse, but his appearance had changed greatly. His face was dark, and one of his eyes was big while the other was small. His mouth was slightly crooked, and he was picking his nose with his finger. Then he stretched out his finger and flicked it. There was a soft whoosh sound, and a wild rabbit flew up from the grass by the side of the road with all four legs facing the sky. The people behind him looked down as if they didn't see it. Normally, this would be a delicious meal, but this wild rabbit was beaten to death by Jundashao with his snot. This made them feel disgusted, although that thing might not be able to penetrate into the flesh, but there should be some psychological barrier. This target is not difficult to deal with, but extremely difficult to deal with. Although he is not a so-called hidden expert, he is much more difficult to deal with than those. Dongfang Wenqing looked at her precious nephew in annoyance. I say, Xie, can you be a little more civilized? No matter what, you are a young master of an aristocratic family. How can you not care about your family's image? Even if you don't care about your own face, do you still want the face of your Jun family? Even if you don't care about the face of your Jun family, what about the face of your mother, your grandmother, and even your uncle? With your current behavior, I am embarrassed to tell my friends that you are my nephew. Isn't this too embarrassing? Don't talk to me if there's nothing. Even if you're not afraid of being embarrassed, I am afraid of being embarrassed. This appearance of mine is all because of you, uncle. Jun Moxie shook his neck, making a crisp sound. He said lazily, You dress me up so ugly, and you want me to be more civilized? Before you talk about me, shouldn't you first review your own skills? Well, I'm not saying that your skills are not good. It's a little unpresentable. Jun Dashao was a little suffocated, and his nose was almost crooked. In order to take revenge, Uncle Dongfang deliberately made Jun Moxie look like this. At first glance, it was obvious that he was an ugly ghost who was not loved by his uncle or grandmother. This made Jun Dashao, who had always felt very good about himself, a little unhappy. Now he was ridiculed with such extreme sarcasm. It would be strange if he was not angry. However, the person in front of him was his uncle, and there was a previous grudge. He did not dare to talk back or fight back, so he could only put up a tough front. He even had to pretend that he could say whatever he wanted and that he did not mind at all. He did not mind at all. However, Dongfang Wenqing was even more sullen. Along the way, he had used all of his treasures in order to teach his nephew a lesson. He had ridiculed and reprimanded him 1,000 times in order to vent the resentment in his heart. However, his nephew had acted as if he was a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water. No matter how furious the storm was, he wouldn't budge. Uncle Dongfang cursed until his mouth was dry several times, but Jun Moxie was indifferent. Because Jun Dashao knew that he would definitely be attacked by Uncle Dongfang's vengeful saliva on this trip, he directly turned off his hearing. No matter how Uncle Dongfang scolded vehemently, or how his saliva splashed everywhere, or how the earth flowed with golden lotuses, Jun Moxie could not hear any of it. Not only could he not hear it, but he could also only see Uncle Dongfang's mouth open and close silently under his beard, spitting out saliva. He had an inexplicable sense of joy, and sometimes he could not help laughing out loud. But this was something Dongfang Wenqing did not know. So the more he scolded, the weaker he felt. After scolding for 2 days in a row, he simply stopped scolding. Towards this nephew of his, Dongfang First Master was truly powerless. Thus, he switched to another method of revenge. Aren't you handsome, with the appearance of a pretty boy? Then I'll turn you into an ugly monster. Let's see if you can stand it. Who would have thought that Jun Xie would be completely unfazed by this new appearance? Not only that, but his behavior immediately conformed to this appearance. Before the disguise, Jun Dashao had the demeanor of a handsome young man. But after the disguise, Jun Dashao's every word and action had completely changed. He was like the ugly face of a local ruffian. This adaptability made even Dongfang Wenqing feel ashamed of his own inferiority. In fact, he even suspected that this might be the true nature of this guy, picking nostrils and flicking snot. These were just child's play. At night, when he sat in Uncle Dongfang's room, he took off his shoes and began to pick his feet. After that, he grabbed 2 handfuls of fruits on the table in Uncle Dongfang's room, but he didn't eat them. Finally, he wiped his hands on the bedding and went back to sleep with his shoes on before leaving the room. He always coughed, so a mouthful of thick phlegm flew out. Then he pressed one of his nostrils with a finger. With a hum, some dark yellowish-brown stuff flew out of the other nostril like an arrow. It hit the ground far away and made a very clear sound. So Uncle Dongfang had a tragic night. He wanted to drink water, but the water bag and cup had been touched by the dirty hand that had picked his feet. How could he dare to drink? Want to eat something? Of course not. I can sleep if I don't eat or drink, right? But the bedding had been touched by this guy. How could he sleep? This angered the Dongfang first master to the point that he was flabbergasted. He was on the verge of going crazy, but there was nothing he could do. Later, he closed the door early and went to bed at night. He would not let this guy no matter what, but when he woke up, he would see his nephew scratching his feet in an evil manner. While scratching his feet, he wore that ugly face that couldn't be any uglier and said, "Uncle, are you awake? Look at my feet. The skin is peeling. Alas, it's all dead skin. Human metabolism is really fast, especially for young people like me. It's good to be young." With Jun Dashao's magical power of earth meld, no door could stop him. Seeing such a shocking scene in front of him, Uncle Dongfang immediately felt his stomach churning. He had a strong urge to vomit. Who would want to see an ugly guy picking his feet as soon as he opened his eyes in the morning? Furthermore, those feet were so close to him that he could feel the warmth of them. It had only been 3 days. Uncle Dongfang, who had a strong mentality, could not help but beg for mercy. So this kind of days finally came to an end. In front of us is the famous metropolis of the mainland, Chrysanthemum City, and our target is the #1 aristocratic family in Chrysanthemum City, the Chun family. Dongfang Wenqing resisted the urge to look at his nephew's vile conduct. He looked straight ahead and said expressionlessly, "Chrysanthemum City?" When Jun Moxie heard these 3 words, he suddenly felt his chrysanthemum clench. He could not help but widen his eyes. This name is quite nice. Nice name? So what if it's nice? Chrysanthemum City can be regarded as a veritable overlord within a radius of 1,000 miles. Dongfang Wenqing snorted and said, "The chrysanthemums bloom in Chrysanthemum City, and when they bloom, the flowers form a sea. With the Chun family in the Chrysanthemum Sea, the chrysanthemums will never die." He sighed and said, "Chrysanthemum Chun is very difficult to deal with that you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.